Hello, everyone. What up? What up? Um, Sarah, if you're on, will you tell me in the chat if the audio sounds good? How's everybody doing? Just waiting to confirm on the audio. Okay, Bob says it sounds good. Sounds great, in fact. So, this is Captain Noah Peffer.
Hello.
You guys have, I'm sure you've heard me talk about him if you've been watching my channel for any amount of time. We've been good buddies since 2017. But we met many years before that, both working in the art world. But Noah came over and visited me when I first bought Tritea, and he has been like an incredible resource for me as far as knowledge of boats goes since that moment. Noah was also Noah and Captain David Stovall were the two people that were texting me explaining how to set up the drogue steering setup on my passage to Hawaii. So I never even heard of that process, and Noah had learned how to do it because what was it? What was the?
My boat came with a Gale Rider drogue, so I Googled it and I found a YouTube video of somebody using it to steer. So I went and tried it.
Did you do it before that race that you guys did to Hawaii?
No.
You just did it?
No, we had an emergency rudder on that race.
Oh,
a real nice cassette rudder. No, I just tried it because I had it and it seemed like something.
Yeah.
Why not?
Which turned out very beneficial for me.
For you.
Someone said, where am I? I am in Islesboro, Maine. Is that how you say it? Islesboro, Maine. It's where Noah lives. I've been here for 2 weeks. I leave in 2 days to head to Newfoundland so I can get on board 59 North's boat and sail to Greenland and Iceland. But I've been here in Maine visiting Noah and Alex, his wife Alex, and we've been sailing his boat around. Will you tell them what your current boat is?
Sure. It's a Finflyer 31 built by Polar Yachts in 1984. It's a little half-ton boat, little half-ton racer. Good little Scandinavian boat.
Yeah, and we did like a 3-day cruise. I'm going to post a little link. I made this little video mostly just for his dad. Well, I made it for YouTube. I made it for Instagram, but then I put it, this is never going to be on YouTube for public consumption, but I'll post it for you guys if you want to watch it. Just bookmark that, copy and paste that link later, and you can watch it. This is just a little sail we did on his boat the other day. It was pretty fun. Great little boat. We'll focus on the chat questions here in a bit. Just want to get rolling first, and then we're just going to talk about boats. So Noah grew up sailing. What was the schooner you guys?
My dad owns a 47-foot on deck, 53-foot overall David Stevens built schooner from Nova Scotia. That is one of 4 hulls of that design that David Stevens built. So he ran a program for high school kids to study marine biology on that boat. So I grew up working on it. Yeah,
and his dad is like a very well-known writer of maritime stuff. He actually has a new book out right now on the boat Windward Passage, which I'll post a link to in the chat. Brand new book just came out. So me and Noah were talking. I was asking Noah how many boats he thinks he has sailed on, and he said about 100. Right? Is a good rough guess.
It'd be safe to say that.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to sit down and have a conversation with Noah, because I get asked tons of questions about different types of boats. What boat's good for cruising? Old boat, new boat, all kinds of questions. And I know a fair amount about specific things. Noah has a very wide range of knowledge that is kind of out of this world. And you just did your classes for surveying to become a yacht surveyor. So he knows all the ABYC stuff, past all that stuff, and that's all fresh in your mind too.
Hopefully.
Let's check the chat real quick. Let's see here. What's happening here? I guess we'll just, it's going to be hard for me to check on this. Let me just, what's up, Nate? let's just get it rolling real quick. So me and Noah went down a list of some different boats, and earlier today I was like jogging his memory or giving just I wanted his like sort of knee jerk reaction to some boats. Um, but first and foremost, let's talk about the boat you bought recently.
Yeah,
And so, how many boats do you think you've owned?
I've owned Columbia, Yamaha, Olson, J-Boat, Clearwater, Finflyer. So
Six boats.
6 real boats.
Okay. So,
a collection of small dinghies.
And you've worked on countless boats, and your
yeah.
dad has owned a bunch of boats.
Yeah, a lot of boats.
He bought a boat it was in North Carolina.
In North Carolina, yep.
And why don't you talk about what happened with that whole scenario? Well, first, describe the boat, describe how you got seduced, and then what came of that situation.
Potentially the perfect boat. I was looking for something that would sail quickly, was relatively small, and didn't draw much water. And I didn't have enough money for a multi-hull. So found a boat called the Clearwater 35, which is built by Holby Marine, and they built a bunch of boats that have been pretty cool and pretty well built, and designed by a guy named Craig Walters. And it has a keel that kicks up like a southerly or like one of the French expedition boats, but it's a fiberglass boat, which was cool because I'm pretty comfortable working on fiberglass. So it draws just under 6 feet with the keel down and the rudder down. When you kick it up, it draws about 1 foot 10 inches. And I've been wanting to do a bunch of gunk holing around the East Coast, so it seemed like the perfect boat. I went and looked at it with my father. It looked good. The infrastructure installation was really funky and definitely not ideal, but I'm happy to fix that. I just didn't want to do like large scale boat building stuff. So I hired a surveyor and was not there for the out of the water survey. Trusted the surveyor to take care of business. Had a long conversation about how I wanted him to really tap it out and make sure that they were comfortable with core boats. The boat is built in vinyl ester with a Divinacell core. So it's not balsa. But
is that some kind of foam?
Yeah, it's a PVC foam,
okay.
Which is like ubiquitous in a lot of boat building stuff now. Some people think it's better. Some people think it's worse than balsa core. But I didn't want to get into core fixing. So the survey said, boat's great, no problems, blah, blah, blah. I bought it, went to the boat.
And what did you pay for it?
$62,000.
Okay.
Went to the boat and started working on it. Seemed like a great boat. Was definitely loved by the previous owner. Had almost exclusively had boatyards do the maintenance on it. And I think it had a series of owners that were not really experienced. And I was changing the through holes out, which I do when they look old on a new boat because it's cheap insurance. And I always tap around holes, and I tapped it with my knife, and I heard a really sad noise.
Like a thud?
Oh, it was really dank, like just dank noise. So I just continued on my job and waited until the next day. I had a good lunch and came in the afternoon like feeling good, so I could really have clear eyes. And I tapped the whole hull out and found the starboard side making a lot of bad noises. I hit the whole thing with a moisture meter, which is not actually a moisture meter. It measures conductivity. So it tells you if there's basically closes a circuit because there's moisture inside the hull.
Right.
And I got really high readings. I marked the whole hull off the way that you do when you're doing a survey on it. And then I drilled a hole into the core and took a core sample to see what was going on. And it unloaded water out of the core like a hose, for like 45 minutes. And continued to sort of expectorate water for like a day and a half.
Wow.
And I took a bunch of samples. And the theory is that you hear, well, it doesn't really matter if foam gets wet. unless you're going to take it somewhere cold, at which point it freezes and delaminates, and then you have sort of an inside boat and an outside boat
Wow.
that are no longer connected very well.
Right.
Um,
And what'd you say did you say it's 50% loss in strength or something like that?
Yeah, so I read a ton. I talked to a lot of people, and I read a ton about what are my options. I immediately went back to Maine and went back to work, and just took many months to think about this. And I read some academic articles about what happens to Divinycell, and they did some tests in the lab. It basically, after 2 years of being completely ensconced in salt water, Divinycell loses roughly 50% of its strength.
Wow.
Which is great compared to balsa wood, which loses 100% of its strength.
Right. Yeah.
But still a little bit frightening, because it was the area around the keel that I found in this boat. The boat's really well made. I talked to Barrett Holby that built it,
Mm-hmm.
and he was pretty funny. He's like, dude, the boat's overbuilt. It's probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing that I spent 60 grand on it, I was like less than enthusiastic to think that it's fine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different kinds of solutions people have that you can vacuum water through it. Barrett had done some repairs where he punches a hole upstream and downstream and uses a vacuum system, and basically resin infuses with fresh water to get the salt out,
Mm-hmm.
and then tries to suck all the water out.
Wow.
I talked to a couple people that have done that method. It sounds a lot like black magic to me.
Yeah.
And
totally.
Most of the people who I know personally were like, no, you got to take the core out,
Right.
Re-vacuum in, all new core, reglass the whole thing.
Yeah, which is insane.
I mean, it's not impossible.
Yeah.
And it's not expensive if you do it yourself. It's really expensive if you pay somebody else. I figured 82 days of work, ran that past several professional glass guys I knew, because it's a big section. And those guys, everybody agreed that it was going to be minimum, that I was like being optimistic.
Yeah. And what would the cost be if you did all the labor?
I did all the labor. I could probably do it for less than 10 grand.
Yeah.
In my optimistic mind, I think 5.
But then it's time too.
But 82 days.
Yeah.
I'm a guy that can make money too. I certainly can't in 82 days. I won't make enough to pay somebody else to do that job.
Yeah.
But it's a horrible job. The base of it is, it's really, really terrible work. Extracting the core is like, it's something I would have been more willing to do when I was in my late 20s and 30s than my mid 40s.
Yeah, totally.
And
that's just because you feel like you obviously would have caught that had you been there when the survey was done, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's
100%.
And we were talking about this. He thinks, like, basically, he said he's had good luck with surveyors in the past, and he just got complacent, right?
I got totally complacent. I had a bunch of really good surveyors. I know a bunch of really good surveyors. The guy that surveyed our J boat was incredible. He did all the damage claims for J boats for the factory, and he knew everything about the boat. And I learned a ton. The guy had sailed tons of ocean miles. He was a second generation surveyor. I just knew a lot of people in that industry, and came to believe that somebody was going to do their job, and they didn't. Because I tapped it out over the phone, and Al could hear the difference on the phone. I mean, I have videos of it. It's really, really, really obvious that there's something wrong.
So I think that's like an important lesson to think about, is that Noah has a crazy amount of experience.
And so does my dad.
Yeah.
Both of us signed off on it.
And and the other thing is the insurance wouldn't cover it, even though the insurance accepted the insurance accepted the survey, and they still wouldn't cover.
Yeah, they would not cover that because they said it was a pre-existing condition. And I argued, well, you guys accepted the survey. And they said, really, we just used the survey to identify the parts that are on the boat.
Wow. So that's something else that's good.
So I would be better off taking that boat out and having some kind of dramatic accident on it, which I've never had, having sailed an awful lot, than I would be just having purchased a boat and not having done my job. And really, like, from the average person who doesn't have a lot of experience working on boats, you could find yourself in that position really easily. Yeah. Like the surveyor. And the other thing that was really important is the community. So the community where that is there's not a ton of people that take great care of their boats.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like where we are in Maine right now, where everybody has like many generations working on boats. And,
Yeah.
like knows what's going on.
I've never seen a greater collection of stunningly beautiful boats than I have in Maine in the last 2 weeks. It's crazy.
And just people that know about them, like the folks, there's a lot of people that are getting into boating early on so that they're having the yards do the work. And the yards where this boat was going were clearly not that great.
Yeah. So then what's your path forward with that boat? Do you even know?
I don't know. So the boat is in a really good yard, which is hands down the nicest place I've ever been where I could do my own work.
Mm-hmm.
It has a really nice shower and bathroom. It's grass. It overlooks like cotton fields.
In North Carolina?
Yeah, it's Triton Yachts.
Mm-hmm.
It's inland, so it's above the hurricane floodplain, which is incredible. If I do that job, the boat's in the right place to do it. I think I'm not going to do that job right away. I'm going to half-ass the boat back together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try and spend as little money as possible. This is our rough plan. Launch the boat, sail it for about a month, run it up to the Chesapeake, and hand it off to some friends who I've sailed a ton with.
Mm-hmm.
And I need somebody who's not me.
Yeah.
To use the boat and give me some guidance who I trust. It could be you if you were here, but you're not. I just need somebody else to use it and be like, walk away, sell it for low bucks, whatever it is that I have to do. But it's like they immediately canceled my insurance policy after they found out that it was
immediately canceled his insurance policy when he wrote to them to see about making a claim.
Well, I made the claim. They had their surveyors come.
Yeah. Their
surveyors did the thing. I talked to the guy. The guy's like, yeah, the insurance company suggested that I sue the surveyor. Yeah. And getting into a lawsuit over $60,000, I'm going to end up spending. It's going to cost me.
And the sleepless nights and the stress.
It's easier to go to work. Yeah. And make a living. Yeah. And sort of accept my fate there rather than focus on trying to screw somebody else over. Like I made a really stupid move, which is great to articulate publicly because hopefully I can save somebody else from it.
Yeah. So what, I'm trying to think here. I think we're going to try to stick to the program a little bit. So earlier I asked Noah to name 3 boats, and he could name a billion, but I was like, name 3 boats under $30,000. And so the first one you said was Islander 36.
Mm-hmm.
Will you talk about that?
Totally. I love Islander 36s. They're pretty. Mm-hmm. They sail well. They're built okay, medium rare. Mm-hmm. But you find lots of them that people have loved.
And what time frame do you know? You said it's from that one to
70s boat.
70s boat.
It's a gurney boat. Everybody I know who's ever sailed them, including a friend who was on 2 America's Cup campaigns, says they're great boats. Mm-hmm. People have sailed around the world in them. Yeah. I mean,
I delivered that one that circumnavigated Intrepid that Zach Sutherland circumnavigated. Yeah. I delivered that one from San Diego to San Francisco in 2015. Yeah. Fantastic boat.
The boat has no bad habits.
Fantastic boat.
It's just, and it's like one of those production boats that really hit the mark. It probably wouldn't be my first choice to do super long ocean passages, but but it could be adjusted to do that just fine. Yeah, it's a good sailing boat. Goes upwind, goes downwind, and the pieces tend to stay together. But it's older, so you got to look at all the stuff.
And then the next one, you said Allied Seabreeze 35.
Allied Seabreeze 35, which is my friend in North Carolina who owns the yard where my dead boat is currently sitting, has an Allied Seabreeze 35. And he and I were racing on it a bunch down there. And it's just a killer boat. I didn't know anything about them until I got there and started sailing on Blair's boat. But it's really pretty. It's a CCA design, so pre-IOR. They're really well built. It sails great. It's not fast by modern standards, but does its job really well. Plenty of room for a couple or a family with a kid, and really manageable. And the size of everything is affordable.
Yeah. I like Allied Seabreezes a lot. That one I sailed in Sweden fantastic boat. Like great
Yeah.
size for short-handed sailing, great size for solo sailing. Awesome.
My father says that that's absolutely what I should have bought instead of the boat that I did buy.
They're awesome boats and shoal draft, right? So
Yeah.
Pearson 30.
Allberg 30.
You said Pearson 30.
Well, I was thinking Allberg.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Your boat.
Oh, my boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allberg or the Triton.
Or the Triton. Yeah.
Like any of the 30-foot 1960s cruisers with the bridge deck.
Mm-hmm.
You see them on the East Coast all the time that are loved.
Mm-hmm.
Loved. And for like less than 30 grand, you get like, you can find ones with like a new engine, new rigging, new sails, medium anchor setup, often wind vanes, autopilots, like kind of ready to go.
Yeah.
And step into a boat that, as long as you can fix some stuff, will actually do the job. I've seen a lot of the boats, of that genre. Mm-hmm. But the Allberg 30s around here, because you've seen a bunch too.
There's a ton. Well, the first 30, I think, were delivered to Annapolis.
Yeah.
Like the sailing club there ordered the first 30. That's how they even went into production.
Yeah.
So somebody's asking, they're talking about, I'm thinking about getting my first ever sailing vessel at 24. Really love how the Catalina 30 looks, and a lot of talk of how it's a well-rounded vessel. I'd like to know y'all's opinion. So I'll start by saying it depends on what kind of sailing you want to do.
Totally.
So what's your thoughts on the Catalina 30?
I think coastal, I think they totally do a good job. They're enormous down below.
Mm-hmm.
Enormous.
They're way bigger than Tritea.
Sure.
It's down below.
I think Catalinas as coastal cruisers are great boats. I've sailed several a lot. Mm-hmm. My position, because I really like sailing and can deal with being uncomfortable, having grown up on really suspect wooden boats. Any fiberglass boat is almost better than what I grew up on.
Yeah.
I prefer the Catalina 27 because it sails better.
It sails better.
The Catalina 27 sails pretty well. Mm-hmm. It's slender. I was really surprised by how good it was.
And then what was that? Patrick Childless, is that his name? He circumnavigated on 27.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
But
Sounds
I would.
Like a terrible idea.
But I'd happily buy one in Maine.
Yeah.
And go to like Panama in it.
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of Catalina yachts, they're cheap production boats. You can get them a dime a dozen. Not so much on the eastern seaboard, but in California, there's a billion Catalinas around. But I met a couple in Fiji who sailed a Catalina 36 from Florida all the way to Australia. And it did perfectly fine. So.
And I sailed a Catalina 36 a lot.
You did?
A real lot, yeah. And it sails I actually think it's like for racing. I think the PHRF on it is really screwed up. Like, I think it's like one of those boats where you can secretly win a lot because you're handicapping.
That is fun.
It's actually a lot faster than they think it's going to be.
Yeah.
But it's a liner boat.
Mm-hmm.
All the furniture is made in one liner that they drop in the boat. So it's very difficult to get to systems.
Yeah. So he was explaining the liner boat to me the other day. So it's all molded out of fiberglass. So you have to cut into the furniture, right?
So the furniture is like a fiberglass shell they drop into the hull. Mm-hmm. And usually the infrastructure is already in the boat. So to get to parts, you have to cut things away.
That's a nightmare. That is such an insane design.
You just if you get into that boat, just know that you're going to have to cut some stuff away. And it is structural. So make sure you're not removing parts that hold the boat together.
Right.
The one I maintained the boat, I worked on one and I did all the maintenance on it. And I cut a lot of holes and put little covers on it and stuff. But that's the downside on the boat. That's why one of the reasons I would not want to take it offshore, because inevitably you're going to have to go in the hole.
Yeah.
That you can't really get to in the dark.
Right. When everything's going crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the line, I said, name me 3 boats for $50,000, around $50,000. And you said, what is this word?
Aotearoa.
Now, I'll try to spell it in the chat.
I don't know if I'm spelling it right. We should Google it. I was just looking at one because that's a guesstimate. But Aotearoa 35. Which is
I never even heard of this boat, but this is one I have no on the channel.
I think it's a Ted Hood design. So like
38, you said?
Yeah, I often will look at it's Auquiez.
Wauquiez.
Quiez.
Oh yeah, that's what you told me. Okay. It's in the chat if you guys are interested in how it's spelled.
I will often think about who designs a boat first rather than who builds it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the genie, I think it's coming from art, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like lots of artists have had lots of people make their stuff, including us.
Mm-hmm.
So like a good designer, if the boat's designed poorly, you're never going to get past that.
Right.
It's always going to be a bad boat.
Mm-hmm.
If a boat is designed well and built badly, well, at least you can sail it and enjoy life with inside of land.
Yeah.
But then you can step up from there. Like if it's well designed and medium well built, well, then you can do a lot with it. And then the better it gets, the more you can do.
Right.
But it needs to have a good design.
Right.
And there's a lot of great designers that people haven't heard of. But that's usually where I start thinking about boats. It's like, who drew it?
Yeah. It's also, I think it's important to point out that Noah likes sailing fast. He likes totally different boats. Well, he likes a lot of boats. I have a very specific interest zone.
Yeah.
Noah loves a lot of different types of boats, but he really likes to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
And he has less concern about creature comforts for his own boat, like sailing or whatever. Currently, his boat, Mongrel, the Fin Flyer, is lovely down below. It's very comfortable. It's a great boat, which is kind of rare for Noah. Like his Olsen 40 was like pipe berths and stuff, and he was like, "This is the best boat ever." And it was like, it felt like you were inside a bleach bottle when you went in that boat, and he loved it. So
more like a skateboard ramp.
Yeah,
it was like
but it was a very fast boat. So that's an important thing to know. We're very different as far as like the style of sailing that we really enjoy.
But
I'm chill.
I do like full keel boats. Like I like any boat that does its job correctly.
Right.
And like I've sailed lots of full keel boats that are awesome, including Allberg 30s. Like it just has to do its job correctly.
Well, on that, and so that takes us to the next one, a Westsail 32.
Yeah, Westsail 32. So for the purpose, you're not going upwind, like really maybe at all.
They're pretty slow too.
Like you're definitely going sideways, but that boat will do a bunch of stuff that I don't want to do. Like I'm a coward, so I'm not going high latitude sailing.
Which I have all intentions of doing.
Unless somebody's going to take me on their like Oyster 53 or Best of Air or whatever.
Right.
But not a boat that I'll own. But if you wanted to go to the gnarliest parts of the world on a budget, Westsail 32 will do it.
Yeah.
And everybody I met that goes to those places, they run into like people in Westsail 32s.
Yeah.
And there's lots
which is pretty cool. There's not a lot of small boats you can say that about.
No, not at all. And like including my boss, who has a lot of miles. And what boat does he want? He wants the Westsail 32 because he's like, well, I can just go and head offshore for 3 days and fish, hang out. It is short money for a serious boat.
And you can find them too.
You can find them.
Somebody just asked, fiberglass or steel for a blue water cruising boat?
It depends. If you're good at working in steel.
Yeah. The thing with steel is it's a never-ending scraping and painting. In the nooks and crannies on the outside, it's never-ending. So that's the main thing to know about steel. If you're going, I wouldn't justify having a steel boat unless I planned on going to the Arctic or Antarctic. I just don't see it worth the effort of dealing with it when fiberglass is like.
It depends on the person for me. Like some people are metal workers.
Yeah.
And they love to manipulate steel.
Mm-hmm.
If you love to work with steel, go for it.
Yeah.
But if you don't. I hate metal work. And I've done my fair share. It smells, it burns you.
Right.
So I wouldn't do it. But for somebody that's comfortable, because you're going to fix stuff, basically.
Yeah.
If you get a boat, you're fixing it.
Somebody just said, any thoughts on the 1967 Bristol 27?
Those old Bristols are good boats.
Yeah, they're awesome.
They're good boats. For the right price, totally. There was one of those old Bristol 27s. That might be what that green boat is that you like, the teal green boat in harbor.
Oh, yeah.
But there was a Bristol 27 when we cold molded the schooner. It was there, and it was a totally cool boat. So yeah, for the right price, that'd be awesome. That would not be my choice to cross an ocean, but for coastal cruising, super fun.
So, okay, well, since you said that, what would be your choice on a boat under 40 foot that you would feel comfortable or happy about crossing an ocean on?
Oh, there's a lot of boats.
Well, let's throw a couple out that are common. He likes really obscure wild boats that most of us will never be able to track down. So
Yeah, I mean,
how about some that
less than 40 feet? Does that include 40 feet? Can I say
sure,
Cal 40?
yeah. Cal
Cal
40.
40s. I love Cal 40s. They're really fast, like insanely fast for a boat from the 60s.
Somebody said, what about an Alberg 30?
An Alberg 30? Sure, totally.
But yeah, Cal 40s.
I said I'd go be your wind vane.
I know, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cal 40s are fantastic.
Yeah, that Northeast 38, that LeCompte Northeast 38.
That's what your dad had, right?
It's a build Tripp design, so it's the boat that Tripp designed right after he designed the Hinckley Bermuda 40. So it performs about like that. It's built as well as a Bermuda 40 in my experience. It sails upwind, downwind, comfortable, no roly-poly when you're off the wind. Just a good boat. There's a lot of boats I cross oceans in. It has more to do with the maintenance of the boat than the boat itself a lot of times.
For sure.
Like, if I was friends with somebody that prepared a Catalina 27 that was a good sailor, I'd go to Hawaii in that. Sure.
What was the boat that you sailed to Hawaii on?
It was a Wiley 39.
Oh, Wiley 39. You like those boats.
It's a really good boat. It's a really good design. Tom Wiley is not as well known as he deserves, I think.
And then we said...
Northeast
and this
38,
one,
yeah.
Oh, Northeast 38. What is that?
That's the LeCompte 38.
Oh, the same thing. Yeah,
it's because you can get those boats almost all the time for like $30,000 or less.
Yeah. Oh, and this is actually an interesting thing that we actually talked about the other day in a conversation. You said the 80s Benettos are actually built very well.
Totally.
Which shocked me.
Yeah, they're built well. They're designed by Herman Frères. I've been on a bunch of them. I have friends that have sailed them tens of thousands of miles, in particular the 42. It's pretty and just a good boat. Yeah. And it's an ILR boat, so it's going to get wonky.
Can we explain them what ILR is?
So it's a design rule.
I got to get the head real quick. Just keep talking to those people.
In the 80s, people were sailing, in late 70s, people were using the International Offshore Rule to design boats. And it basically required, if you wanted to have success in that rule and not be handicapped out of being competitive, it rewarded boats that were really wide in the midsections and slender in the front and the back. And they generally had really big rig, like very tall masts with kind of short booms. And they were displacement boats, unlike some of the boats that came out of California that were planing. These boats, once you get them to hull speed, they weren't going to do a lot more. And what that did is it made these boats sailing dead downwind have a penchant for rolling side to side a lot. And it doesn't make them bad boats. A lot of people complain about them because of that. But if you just come up a little bit and heat the boat up and get closer to broad reaching, it stabilizes and it'll sail really fast and comfortably. So it is a boat that can have bad habits on a certain point of sail, but you don't necessarily have to stand at that point of sail. It's easier to sort of jibe back and forth. If you're doing a Hawaii race, yeah, you put the kite up and ride it out and hope to hell that everybody can drive really well.
Scary business. Someone says, what about a Grampian? Do you know what this boat is?
Yeah. Okay. I have never sailed one. And I have never poked around in one. But I met a couple in San Pedro that sailed down from Washington that were living on one. And it looked pretty cool. And they were stoked on it and got into some really gnarly stuff off Coos Bay. So that's all I know about it.
Yeah. I never even heard of that boat. What else? Someone says, would you be comfortable with a CNC 38.2 to the Caribbean?
38.2 to the Caribbean? It just depends on the maintenance.
Yeah.
I have seen some really, really funky stuff on CNCs. I did a survey on one and I found some pretty amazing stuff. I know a lot of people in boat yards that have encountered some amazing stuff, but like any boat, if it's been owned by a series of people that knew what they're doing, it'll be fine. And some of the older CNCs are actually better. I knew a guy that took a CNC 40 that ran, he was the foreman at a yard in Massachusetts, and he cut the transom off,
Mhm.
and he put a long transom on with an overhang and turned it into a yawl, and the boat was awesome. It was super awesome. But
I mean, I don't advise anyone cutting the back of a boat and adding onto it. Leave that to naval architects.
This worked out pretty well, but
I think it's absurd.
But a CNC 38.2 to the Caribbean, it depends how you go too. There's a lot of things to depend on that. CNCs there are some build quality issues in there, but if it was maintained right, like I would look really hard at keel bolts. That's what I found.
Keel bolts.
That was
any bolt on keel. That's a big concern. Someone just said, what about in-mast furling? I think in-mast furling is completely absurd.
I've now sailed a lot of boats because I worked running charter boats that had them.
They're a nightmare.
I had really bad luck with them.
Yep.
I sailed like a lot of boats, and I've used everything. I've sailed everything from an Oyster to a Hunter that has them too. So like the spectrum.
Right.
And none of them have been easy.
Yeah.
The Oyster had remarkably good sails, and we had to be so careful to keep the tension on the outhaul, or it does pretty much the same thing where it jams half in, half out.
That's the one I sailed on a Dufour, 42 foot or 45 foot Dufour from Puerto Rico to Bermuda to North Carolina, and that thing jammed up multiple times. And it's scary. If it jams up the wrong, and it's going to jam up when it's under pressure, right? So when you need to furl it, that's when it's going to jam up. And also, I never understood putting the weight vertical. Like the in-boom ones, I mean, I would never own one, but they make more sense to me than the in-mast ones.
I've used a couple of those too, and I used one on a 79-foot Trentella, and it functioned well. There was an electric winch on it. It was really slow. The whole thing, the process was extremely slow, which on a big boat, sometimes everything's slow anyway.
Yeah.
But it had the same issues where you really had to get the tension on the mandrel correct. Yeah. So it's good. It seems really expensive.
I would never in a billion years have either one of those systems on a boat.
The system for bigger boats that works well is the back car system with Harkin. You can reef and pull the sail up and down under pressure really well. And then there's the Tough Track. I forget who makes that. That's what we had on the J boat, and that works great too. I would rather have one of those systems that carries the luff of the sail up and down, easily connected to an electric winch if I was worried about stuff. Yeah. Because you're still going to, no matter what, be able to get it up and down. It doesn't get stuck.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm about to sell on Andy Shell's new to him FAR 65. And I was just in Annapolis on that boat for a couple days a few weeks ago, and we bent on the mainsail for that boat. The mainsail weighed 220 pounds. It doesn't have in-mast boom, or it doesn't have like furling at all. It's traditionally set up. It's massive, and they don't have any electric winches on that boat. Yeah. And everything's fine. But that being said, they have a lot of crew.
There's a lot of crew. But a 60-foot boat is sort of beyond what most people are going to do.
For sure. But I'm saying it's not like you have to say, well, we need it because the boat's so big. So this is a 65-foot boat. So you know what I mean?
I mean, I've single-handed a 42-foot boat a lot. It didn't have any of that.
Someone asked something I thought was interesting. They said thoughts on a caliper 38 or 40. Do you know
caliber 40?
Yeah.
I haven't sailed one. I've been next to lots of them. I've been on a few of them. They appear to be pretty well built. And the people that I met that owned them had rave reviews. One of the couples had sailed it down to Central America from Seattle and back via Hawaii, and were living on it in Seattle in the winter. So comfortable boat, certainly a good sea boat, according to them. And so I know like more than 3 people that had them and did like a lot of miles on them, and were really satisfied. Somebody
asked a good question. They said, for extended cruising, full keel is fin keel and spade rudder a handicap? My opinion is you just have to look at Delos. Like those dudes have been sailing with a fin keel and a spade rudder, and they circumnavigated. So I think a lot of it comes down to what you were saying before. It's maintenance, right? And how well is the boat built in the first place? Yeah, and so people get really dogmatic about that, right? Yeah. Like people want you to do it their way, and the fact is you got to do what that allows you to sleep at night, right? Like I have certain things that I really care about that other people don't.
I don't have any issues crossing oceans on fin keel boats.
Yeah.
Doesn't
There's
bother
so
me.
many that do it. I don't have any. I like my full keel boat. I like how quiet she is. I've been on, $300,000 boats with big flat bottoms that were super fast. But when you're beating into weather, that boat sounds like it's going to break into pieces, and it sounds like a snare drum inside. And that stresses the crew out, stresses everyone out. So there's a trade-off that happens. So that boat's fast, so it can get you there quicker, which is safer in some ways. But at some point, you're going to have to beat to weather. When I beat to weather, my boat is almost silent down below.
And that's, like there are fin keel boats that go upwind that are quiet too, right? Like those 70s swans, the Sparkman Stevens swans have like a really deep 4 foot. So when they go to weather, they're not going to slant.
Right. So see,
as much.
Yeah.
Like at some point, all boats are going to slant
For sure.
But and they're going to point way higher. I don't see a fin keel as a handicap. I would recommend sailing a bunch of different boats. I mean, that's the best thing. When I always tell people, get on the boat, because for me, I like to sail boats that feel like dinghies. Because I loved dinghy racing as a kid. I love to get out and get wild.
Yeah, but that being said, he also had a J42, which is not a dinghy.
No, but it's definitely a boat that can bump up into the teens, make you feel like you're getting wild, even though you're not really getting that wild.
Yeah. Somebody asked about Warums. Have you sailed on any Warums?
No, but I'm a fan.
Yeah, I think Warums are cool.
I'm a total fan.
I've said before many times, I'm a monohull sailor. I'll never own a multi-hull. I have no interest in catamarans. But first time I saw Warum was in Tiki How in the Tumotus, and it was like totally homemade, like made out of driftwood and stuff. And it was a cool boat. And they're based on Polynesian designs. They're cool boats.
Yeah. And I think you just have to figure
they're ocean going boats too.
It depends on who you are. For me, that is a boat I would not cross an ocean on.
Yeah. Oh, but I will say that at some point, I would imagine me and Noah and Dale from Womble are going to do the race to Alaska, and that's the boat I would vote we race on as a Warum catamaran.
Totally.
Because if you're going to try to place in that race, you have to have a multi-hull.
Yeah.
And we could push it to the brink.
Yeah.
So
I would definitely own a Warum. Like to say I wouldn't cross an ocean, that's not to diminish how awesome I think they are.
Yeah. They're awesome.
I'm just cowardly.
Let's see here. Someone said, "Is there a boat you won't sail?" We'll let you answer that.
No, I'll sail any boat.
He will definitely sail
in certain conditions.
Yeah, exactly. I'll sail any boat in the mooring field.
Yeah, I'll sail within sight of lane. I love sketchy boats, and I love to
love sketchy boats.
I love to get on different boats. So I'll give anything a chance.
You learn something on no matter what happens.
And I've been surprised by boats on many occasions. Boats that were much cooler than I thought. I originally
give us an example.
A Hunter 40 from the 80s. I don't remember who designed it. It actually sails really, really well.
That is shocking to me.
Really well. Surprisingly well.
Sarah sounds like she's amused. She said, "What a pair you two make." Choi Lee. Choi Lees are awesome. What do you think about Choi Lees?
Awesome.
Yeah, great.
That Frisco Flyer, love.
Yeah.
Love. I love the step deck house ones. There was the early,
a lot of bright work, and I wouldn't want teak decks on any boat that I owned.
There's a Rob designed one from before it. It was plank on frame with teak planking.
Oh, this brings us to a thing I wanted to talk about anyway.
That was awesome.
So wooden boats.
Don't buy a wooden boat unless you know how to work on them.
Exactly.
Period. Because you have to understand the materials are expensive. So when I grew up on wooden boats because my parents were hippies and they didn't have any money. So they could get wooden boats, and fiberglass boats were really expensive in the 70s. And wood was really cheap.
Wooden boats are still cheap, but there's a reason they're cheap, because they like to sink.
But now fiberglass boats are cheap too.
Yep.
So it's not to chase people away from wooden boats. Wooden boats are great, but the materials are expensive.
And it's a passion, and you have to know what you're doing. And it is something that's a constant.
You're going to have to be able to fix it. And there's less and less people that can now. So you're not going to be able to just go to any yard and hire somebody to fix it. And also that's plank on frame. Cold molded, laminated boats are a different deal. That's basically a fiberglass boat.
Yeah.
It's actually better.
Which is actually, we just went and did a tour of we had a private tour of the Brooklyn Boatyard here in Maine, and it was incredible. And those are all cold molded.
They're all cold molded. And like, they're also strip planked. You can strip plank a boat and either glass the outside and glass the inside, or carbon outside inside. Those boats, that's a monocoque boat, meaning it is a singular unit. It's glued together. It's not like a wooden plank on frame boat that's lots of pieces that are fastened.
Mm-hmm.
That boat, like a good cold molded boat, is the choice, hands down for me. I think it's the strongest, lightest thing you can get.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, I mean, you got to get a very specific surveyor that knows cold molded boats, I would imagine.
100%.
You know, that would be my concern.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's in California, I know just the guy to call.
And then also, like, a lot of marinas won't even let you keep wooden boats in marinas, and getting insurance for them, good luck.
But cold molded boats are known as composite.
Yeah.
So you can insure them as composite and call them composite without going
that makes sense.
amiss, because it really is.
That's good to know, actually. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a different deal.
Someone said, do you prefer sloop over ketch, yawl, or schooner?
Oh, geez. I've sailed them all. I mean, I own a sloop right now, so that says something.
Mm-hmm.
I like simple stuff. It's got less stuff to break.
Yeah.
I've sailed all the above, plenty. I guess I own a sloop, so there's the answer. Cutters are great. I really want to try out that setup that you've got with the
sludder rig.
The sludder rig, because that looks to me like the smart answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice and versatile. Someone asked something I thought was interesting. They said, which I mean, I know my answer to this. Thoughts about capsize screening formula? Do you see boat data accurate measure of safety? I don't think you need to worry about capsizing unless you're going to the Southern Ocean.
I don't know.
I guess the Indian Ocean, there's possibilities. But if you're sailing in the correct ocean when there's not hurricanes or cyclones or typhoons, it's going to be pretty difficult to capsize.
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know.
Do you know of anyone that's capsized outside of the Southern Ocean? I can't think of any stories.
You mean pitch pole or like mast in the water? I
mean, full, like,
upside down.
Like, I guess like Kenichi Hori did on that little, but that was a 19-foot plywood boat. He rolled 3 times.
I've talked to a couple people that have capsized. The
Really?
North Atlantic. North Atlantic. Yeah. And so capsize screening, I think it's more important to be a skilled mariner than it is the formula of the boat.
Yeah, the formula is not going to help you once you find out if it's correct or not.
I think RJ42 was like insane how it's capsize screening, but I'm sure you can capsize it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think who's running the boat is always going to be the most important thing.
Yeah.
You know, like seamanship is going to be more important to me than a formula. That said, I don't want to sail a Wareham catamaran like offshore.
Yeah.
But this, you know, I would have to get to sea on boats and feel it out. Because I've sailed some boats that have like the formula doesn't look so good on paper.
Yeah.
And I felt really secure on them. Like a lot of older boats, because they've got a lot of weight up higher in the boat, the capsize screening formula is not very good. Like they don't appear to be that safe, but they're really comfortable and you can manage them safely at sea, particularly using drogues and stuff.
Yeah. It's funny too. I interviewed Holly Martin of Wind Hippie Sailing. I sat down and interviewed her parents, which lived near to here in Maine. Had dinner with them the other night and then interviewed them for the Yarns podcast. They were telling me they circumnavigated in a Cal 25, had 2 children en route, had their son in Australia, and then they were in New Zealand, had Holly, and they continued to sail. They sailed with no engine. They had a little outboard they kept in the lazarette for when they were entering harbors. They'd pull it out, put it on the back to get in, and that was it. So the entire world on a Cal 25. Now, I'll say he cut that boat apart before they started circumnavigation, and he built it kind of like a Sherman tank. So it wasn't a production Cal 25. He customized the hell out of that boat. But that being said, they did it in the Cal 25. But they were telling me, I think it was in the Indian Ocean, they got hit. Oh no, it was after they left Cape Town, before St. Helena. They got hit with a 3 set of rogue waves, and they said the first wave that they went up on, which was the main one that was the issue, was 80 feet tall. Now, it wasn't a breaking wave, but they saw it on the horizon coming at them. And their boat went all the way up, and it was kind of breaking at the top. And then they started surfing down with great violence. But they said that boat was so light, it actually turned up and surfed back up the face of the wave and off the side like a surfer would. And they said it was basically the exact same thing that happened to Smeaton's, but the Smeaton's boat was too heavy to surf back up. And it was also one, it was our 3 set of waves rather than the Smeaton's were in the Southern Ocean were after a gale, right? So, but they were saying that they should have pitch pulled, but their boat, and they weren't even at the helm. There was nothing. They were just holding on for dear life, and it surfed back up the wave and into safety. So I thought that was an interesting thing to hear.
Totally. I mean, I think I was at a safety at sea seminar, and John Jourdain, who's got to be like one of the most experienced California sailors, and done at least 2 around the world races, and he's an older guy now, said that his favorite boat for the Southern Ocean is the fastest boat he can get on. And they just
it makes sense.
His argument is you keep the kite up and stay ahead of the breaking seas.
Yikes.
Now,
that is terrifying.
It's totally,
that is not my idea of fun.
It's a different deal. This is not shorthanded stuff, because you need a group of people that can drive, which is a different deal. And John Jourdain it's like having Superman describe something to you.
Someone said Endeavor 38 aft cockpit.
Never sailed one. I was parked across from one in La Paz a couple of years ago that belonged to a young guy. He did a lot on it without knowing very much, so it must be forgiving. But I mean, it seems like a perfectly suitable boat to do coastally. I don't know how it's put together.
Yeah,
so
what about a Dana 24? Somebody's asking.
Totally cool.
Yeah,
totally
awesome.
cool. I've been on one.
Mm-hmm.
I love the interior. It felt stout enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be really slow, but I would accept that for like how cheap it will be to operate.
Yeah, they're cool.
And
Flickas too. You like Flickas?
I'd take the Flicka over the Dana 24. I don't think the Dana 24 is that much faster. And like I feel like it's a better value to get the Flicka.
That is fun. Somebody said Top Hat 25. Do you know that?
I don't know that.
I don't know that either. Someone said, do you have ever saw on a male Sharky? I don't know anything about males.
No, I haven't. And I know a couple people who are really good sailors who like males.
Okay.
Outside of the Delos crowd. We're talking like salty.
Real
salty old dogs that think males are great.
That's good.
I have never
I know nothing about them.
I've never sailed one. They look a little weird, which appeals to me.
He does like weird looking boats.
I like a weird boat, but so all I know is that I've heard that the people who I talked to had done like long ocean passages on them and said it was fine.
Mm-hmm. Cape Dory 27.
Great. Put the weight in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
If you put too much weight in the front and the back, you bob around like my friends do here. But like on short money, like that's about like little boats. No matter what, you have to think about where you put the weight.
Yeah.
Cape Dories are cool.
Yeah, I like Cape Dories. Obviously, they have a good designer. Someone said Cape Dory 25. That's the Cape Dory with the diesel engine. I think every boat should have a diesel.
Yeah.
Don't ever sell a boat with a gas engine. If it has a gas engine, switch it out.
Somebody tried to give me a Cape Dory 25 like 2 weeks ago.
That's the funny thing. Yeah, people try to give me boats all the time. Now, when I didn't have a boat, no one gave me a boat. I couldn't afford a boat. No one was giving me free boats. But now people always try.
I think it's because we're hanging out around boats all the time.
Yeah. Someone said, is the Catalina 30 a good starter boat, or should I get a 36? Get a 30.
30.
Don't start with a 36.
Always start with the smallest thing you can.
Yes.
Because you're not going to even know what you want.
Yeah.
And 30 is genuinely, it can do anything. You could take a family of 5.
In the 60s, a 30 was a big yacht.
Yeah, but
I thought my boat was big until I went to French Polynesia, and it was like the size of everyone's dinghy.
Have you been in Catalina 30s?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're huge.
Yeah, they're gigantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just sailing on one in Marina del Rey, when I was in LA.
That's right. Yeah. The 30 will do everything. The 36.
Contessa 26.
Awesome. There's these women, these 4 young women here that I know that sail one all the time, and they are complete Vikings. They're like 23 years old, and they blast around. I watched them sail up to the dock the other day, and it was,
I love that. It's
I, like,
such a hard,
downwind
flex.
at the dock, doing like 6 knots, jump a 150 Jenny, turn to windward, everything flutters, perfect landing.
I love it.
It was, yeah.
It's such a hard flex.
And I love that weird companion way. It's got kind of the hobbit door that you go in.
Yeah, they look cool.
It's like it's a modified folk boat.
Oh yeah,
which is why it's so awesome.
Someone says opinion on Morgans, particularly the 38.
Oh, 38's good. The 38, the older 38 is good. I met a lot of people that sailed those. It's kind of similar, roughly similar to an Islander 36 kind of a boat. Those are good boats. Not all Morgans are created alike, and the build quality is, middle of the road American.
Well, and I guess that's like an important thing to know too. Like if it's a Morgan 38, it might be the year time periods. You need to do research on, really dig into like when they were at their best. I think the price is going to tell you a lot.
And like if it's owned by somebody that knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
That's where I get into trouble. I buy boats that are like have been left alone or owned by people that didn't know what they're up to.
What else? Oh, somebody said something. For standing rigging, you're more concerned about years or miles on the rig. Thanks actually for pointing out standing rigging, because I wanted to talk about this. It was on my list of things I wanted to talk about. I think years and miles, it depends. Like, what do you say? How many miles should be on a rig before you change it? I think it's one or the other.
It depends on the kind of rigging.
Yeah.
So
for me, like,
how many miles?
I
mean, I think depends how fast you circumnavigate.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with Alan at SeaTech about that when I did the rod rigging. So the rod, I was like, so should I at 5 years take this out and check the heads on the rod? And he's like, yes, if you circumnavigate twice, which insinuates that like that repeated loading is a big deal.
Yeah.
But any swage fittings that are over 5 years old, I'm going to start to think about.
Really?
Personally, in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah.
Because it's so cheap to make those things.
So that's the other thing I want to talk about. I'm trying to find this thing. Okay, here it is. So when I was replacing the rigging on Tritea, Noah had just done the rigging on his J42, I don't know, 6 months before something. So all the rigging, not the stay-like fittings, but all the actual wire that I used for my whole boat was $592. Now, how much was the rod rigging on your J42?
Like about $7,500.
So $7,500. So, and that's, but you said that's a 20-year rig.
It's a 20-year rig.
So
you can actually insure it.
Oh, cool.
I could get insurance for 20 years on that rig.
That's awesome.
Most people you talk to are like 20 years for rod is good, because the rod they cold head where it fastens into things. So it's basically a nail head. It's really like that's going to work harden, and you can pull that back, cut it, and rehead it. So the issue with rod rigging, which is this weird alloy called Nitronic 50, is it work hardens where it has repeated loading. So the spreaders and the cold headed parts.
But the spreaders, you can't just cut that. You're testing.
No, that's after 20 years.
Yeah.
You get rid of it. And I talked to Alan and I talked to Buzz Ballinger when I did the rigging on the Olsen. And he built like every awesome mast on the West Coast, basically. And Buzz was like, after 20 years to replace it. He's like, because they work hard.
That's a long time, though. I mean, 10 years is kind of what I'm looking at on my 1x19.
Yeah, like people
steel cable.
They think it's just for racing, but it's not necessarily. Like, if you're going far away, it's cool. And
but what would you choose for rigging material?
It depends on the boat. Honestly, I'm totally content on the Fin Flyer with wire.
Yeah.
I love how cheap it is. It's cheap. I can do it anywhere. If I have to, I can use stay-lock fittings. I mean, I prefer to swage just because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
But I like that.
Yeah.
For a bigger, more expensive boat, I would lean towards rod, so that it was one less thing for me to have to think about replacing frequently.
Yeah. And like Dyneema, if I had a coastal cruiser, I would do all the rigging in Dyneema. I think it's awesome. You can do it yourself. But it takes about a year to set in. So it's constantly stretching. And for me, I didn't do Dyneema because I knew I was doing a circumnavigation. I didn't want to worry about the rig. There's enough other things to worry about that I was like, I don't want to worry
That's
about
exactly
it.
right.
Yeah. So that's my thought, or our thoughts on the rigging. Let me see. Someone said, I'm on a 1986 Newport 27.3. Wonder if you have an experience with one.
I do. I have a friend that sails like basically a derelict Newport 27 into oblivion. He and his super crusty 90-year-old father used to sail it to the Channel Islands a lot in the winter, which is pretty sketchy, as you know. They sailed it through Santa Barbara Channel in all kinds of terrible weather. The boat was thrashed and they had a blast on it. My experience on it was that it sailed quite well, and it was not that well built, but these guys' seamanship made it pretty unreal. I think Newports for coastal cruising are great.
This person's been patiently asking this question. A Hans Christian 33.
I did a survey on one in Mexico with a friend of mine.
In Puerto Vallarta.
This one's in Puerto.
Yeah, this person, he says
is in PV. The one that I surveyed is in La Paz now, and it came from maybe San Blas. It was being delivered to Hawaii, and the delivery skipper said it's not in good enough condition. They were right to get it there. The boat, it was a ton of boat in a small package. It had like everything that our J42 had space-wise. It was really, really, really well built. And all the parts and pieces were really, really top shelf. But I got the impression in using it, moving it around, and doing our sea trial stuff that it was having a bit of a hard time sailing. It felt like there was too much in too short a package. Now, if you're down to sail slowly in the trade winds, it would do that all day long.
Yeah.
And it was really impressively well built.
Someone asked a question. They said, I've heard that 74 and older fiberglass has a resin that will not blister. Is that true?
No.
It's not true.
It's not. No, it's not true.
Okay.
So the issues with resins, and I am not an expert, and I have had students that were getting PhDs in resins, so I know how little I do know. But
Noah used to be a professor of nautical sciences at USC,
University of Southern California.
Yeah.
So the basic, like the remedial understanding of resin I have is that we've got that really is used for boat building. We have isophthalic resin, which is polyester. We have vinyl ester, and then we move into epoxies. And most of the pre-70s boats are isophthalic, and it was a different mix. What happened in the 70s is people started to try their isophthalic resin burns really easily. So fiberglass boats catch on fire. So they started messing with it, trying to make things that didn't burn. And it made a lot of boats that have real issues with blistering because they didn't have good adhesive properties. So any isophthalic resin boat blisters, in my experience. That doesn't mean that it's going to be bad, and blisters aren't really that big a deal most of the time. The issue is to worry about the boats where they started to put this mix in to stop fires.
What time period was that?
It was like the late 70s.
Late 70s.
And there was a bunch of Taiwanese boats that had major issues. So my friend worked on a Baba 40 that was like coming apart.
Wow.
So
I love Baba 40s.
Yeah, and I've been on Baba 40s that are beautiful, and this one was toast.
Yeah. That's the importance of a survey.
Yeah, and basically you need a good surveyor that's going to tap everything. If you tap that out, you're going to hear what's going on with it. I tried to buy boats that are built with vinyl ester resin. It's totally different game.
Yeah.
And a good example of that is that the race boats that were built in California in the 70s and 80s were all vinyl ester boats, and the East Coast boats, the J boats that made in the same period, are all falling apart.
Wow.
The California boats going strong.
Wow.
So the vinyl ester, what happened is that the isophthalic resins let water come through and get to the core. So that's an issue.
Yeah.
But the vinyl ester boats, not so much. And vinyl ester is a lot more expensive. But when you
there's a reason.
But when you look at
in the long run,
yeah. But in
Yeah.
older boats, nobody really knows anymore. So if
Yeah.
you do your research and find a vinyl ester boat, you're going to be better off.
Yeah. Now, here I have a question for you, and I'll tell you my opinion, and then we'll see what Noah has. Noah would know much better than me, but I would say if I was buying a boat that was under $10,000, I probably wouldn't get a survey. What's your opinion? Is there a limit? Like, what's the survey cost? $1,000?
Yeah. I mean, I think
Like, what do you think the number is where people should be concerned about making sure they definitely get a survey?
everybody has their
versus-
own number.
Yeah, but what's your number?
My number for getting a survey, like 30 grand.
Yeah.
Oh, honestly, at this point, whatever. I'm doing my own surveys.
Yeah, but not everybody has that option.
So I've learned.
For
I've learned
me,
that lesson.
it's like if I was shopping for a boat that was under $10,000, I would do my due diligence on the boat. I would look over everything I would do my own survey as well, but I wouldn't pay a surveyor unless it was over $10,000. That's just my thoughts.
I would bring a friend who could be an objective observer.
That's a very
Like,
good point,
my
because
wife-
you're going to be seduced by whatever
Yeah,
you're looking
my
at.
wife is really good, and I should have brought her to look at the boat that we had the issues with,
Yeah,
because
'cause
my
she-
dad was as seduced as I was.
What else? Any thoughts on 1983 Barbara Show 34? Doug Peterson design IRA built boat in Italy. You know this?
I don't know that builder, but Doug Peterson is one of the best North American naval architects ever. So
There
that
you
bodes
go.
well for the boat. I haven't seen a Doug Peterson boat that I didn't like, and I haven't sailed one either. So it'd have to be built pretty badly for me to not like it.
Let me see. What else? Let me see if we have some other questions on here. Oh yeah, we didn't go too deep into our 100,000 boats, but you Swan 38. You like Swans?
I like Swan 38s a lot.
Mhm.
It's like a miniature version of the 59 North boat.
Of East Buren.
Yeah, I've always liked them. I liked them since I was a little kid. I got
Mhm.
on one when I was like 11 and kind of had my mind blown. The aft cabin is like very small, which I like in that. And it's just completely indestructible feeling, which I like.
Somebody said, I don't know anything about this, but how about a dual swing keel, Caddy Cragen 38? That sounds like a lot of stuff to break to me.
I don't know a Caddy Cragen 38. I do like swing keels. They do break. Here's what I learned in my process of buying a boat with a swing keel is that there is no such thing as a good deal. And if there's complicated systems in the boat, it should probably be expensive.
Yeah. So lotto boat, you won the lotto.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
No, but I'm saying, what is your lotto boat?
If I won, it would be I'm not sure it's even done yet, Best of Air 36.
Mhm.
I would avoid aluminum boats because I don't know how to work in aluminum, except KM.
But if you won the lotto, it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter. Well, it'd be a brand new KM.
Yeah.
It's going to outlive me no matter what. As long as I don't drop a penny in the village, I'm good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See,
Hands
it's funny
down.
because that's my lotto boat too. But I would want the KM, the best of, I say best ever.
Yeah.
The best ever. 42, is that it?
It's a 45.
45. That's what I would get.
Yeah.
If I won $1 billion, I would have them custom make me a best ever. KM yachts. It's
Yeah.
number one.
Those boats.
Best on the planet. No better boat.
But the other boat is there's one particular boat, which is Taboo, which is a FAR 44 that was built by Rich Crow in like 10 years ago.
Mhm.
It is a singular boat that I've been on. And if I won the lotto, I would go and offer those people money for it because the
'Cause
boat
you loved it.
It was a work of art.
Rick asked, how is my engine coming along? My engine has been done for a very long time and installed in the boat. YouTube is time delayed. And yeah, my engine got fully rebuilt and is installed, and I cruised. I did 34 anchorages in the Bay of Islands and the Hauraki Gulf before I came stateside. Let's see, we should have 139 people still on. We've been doing 69 minutes. Everybody still chill? Y'all still hanging out? We're good. Are you okay? Good. All right. Someone says, you planning on sailing soon? Yes, I'm sailing from Newfoundland to Greenland to Iceland next week on 59 Norths. far, what is it?
63.
Here, 65.
I only know because I'm a fanboy of the boat.
I'm going to post the link to the passage I'm doing right now. I was smart and used kind of pre-game some of this stuff. So this is the passage that, and I'll just say before I hit enter on this, I did not pay for this. I was invited to go on this passage. So when you see the cost of these tickets, don't think for a second I paid this because I could never afford this. But Andy Shell, who owns the company, he's the skipper for this leg, invited me to come along and shoot a film. So I'll be making a passage film of that. I'm going a couple days before the clients show up so we can hang out in Newfoundland, do some side quests and do some filming, talking about preparing. That trip's going to be crazy because there's 11 of us on a 65-foot boat sailing to Greenland through the tip of southern Greenland and then to East Fjordur in the West Fjords of Iceland. Should be crazy.
Great. And that boat is crazy.
Yeah.
It looks awesome.
It is very, yeah. Bob Perry designed the whole inside. Like they gutted the thing. Bob Perry designed the inside. Nigel Calder did all the electronics. Like talk about a pedigree boat.
Yeah, and just like it's exactly the kind of boat John Jordan's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're gonna outrun breaking waves.
Yeah.
It's just don't punch through the next one.
Mm-hmm. Someone says, "What will you do if an orca pod bothers your vessel?" Well, I know how to sail without a rudder, so I'm not too worried about it. Someone asked if I can get mics for the guests for my interview. No, I'm not going to invest anything in the podcast. I'm just doing the podcast to document people's stories. The sound is totally fine. And it's just like an extra thing. So I'm just doing it for documenting. I'm not trying to build it as a business. So I'm just, I have to do as little work as possible because I have it may not seem like it, but I have a massive workload because I do everything by myself. What else? Someone said 10K for 18 days. Yeah, it may sound like a lot, but if you added up an 18-day vacation in Europe and then added on like a boutique curated sailing with highly knowledgeable skipper and first mate on a boat that's wildly outfitted perfectly for it.
Yeah. What
that does is that gives people the opportunity to experience something like sailing to Greenland because you couldn't buy a boat for $10,000 that could take you to Greenland. Well, you could maybe, but you might not come back.
You might not buy a life raft for $10,000.
I know. So when $10,000 is like big if you don't have a budget, but I tell people to look into those packages. They have some of those offshore things for like $5,000. And I think that's totally fair because it's like a week vacation. You're going to learn if you really like ocean sailing. And like you often say, it's like going to grad school.
Yeah, everything. I think it's a totally good deal. I
Yeah.
recommend that stuff. And not just those guys, but there's a couple
Yeah, John Kretschmer's doing it. Ocean Passage is doing it. A couple different people.
Yeah, and I think it's money that is well spent.
Yeah.
Because you see how a boat is set up for real. Somebody else has done the work, and it's like the same price as like any kind of normal vacation. And like to go to Greenland is really extreme. Like that's going to be expensive. They need like a really serious boat to do that.
Yeah. Someone asked for blue water cruising, importance of knowing Celestial. I think it's very, very unlikely that you will ever have to use Celestial. So I don't think it rates high on the must know. I'm going to turn the light on.
Sure.
What's your thoughts on that? Oh, that's the wrong one.
Know how to do a noon sight? Oh, maybe it's this one right there. Yeah. Know how to take a noon sight.
Yeah. I mean, well, you have to have a decent section and everything too, you know, but I think it's very rare. I mean, I know how to do it and I have a section. I keep all the charts because I think it's romantic and I like to have absurd amounts of redundancies, especially now with my experience offshore. Opinion on a compact 33.
I've never sailed one. I haven't even been close to them. It looks totally nice to me, but I haven't laid hands on one, so I don't know. But it looks attractive.
Yeah.
So,
someone says dinghy advice, brand, size of motor. The Highfields I've seen around the world seem to be the best made dinghies.
But so I was just talking to Earl about this. We couldn't figure out because he just bought a Highfield.
Mhm.
Are those Hypalon? I don't think they are. I think they're PVC.
Yeah, but mine's PVC and it's fine.
But the PVC needs cover from UV,
they break down,
whereas
sure.
the Hypalon doesn't.
Yeah.
So he had all ABs in their charter trade stuff that last the full. His dinghies are 20 years old.
Oh wow.
So he runs
PVC dinghies do not last.
Yeah,
20 years.
he stands by the AB Hypalon ones. Now he just bought a Highfield, and I have seen all the fancy boats now have Highfields.
I've seen a lot doing a lot of miles, and they hold up. From what I've seen out in the world, they're pretty good dinghies.
So are they PVC?
I have no idea because I don't own one.
So, but Earl didn't even know, and he does own one.
Well, it says wherever he ordered it from, it'll say.
Yeah.
So you need to know because you got to get the right patches for it.
Yeah.
And as far as motor size, I have a 6 horsepower outboard I got the biggest outboard I could get that had an internal tank. So I have the internal tank and I can hook up the long range tank. And I think that's important sort of thing. You have your little 2 horsepower.
Yeah, I have moved towards smaller and smaller engines.
Yeah.
Because I end up pulling my engine a lot at night. I've seen the engine take off and fly and turn upside down too many times.
Yeah, from the wind.
And I got tired of lifting stuff.
Yeah.
So that's like totally subjective for each people. Some person might just want to row. Like that could be nice.
Well, Holly rode. She just bought her first outboard, but she rode everywhere from Maine to New Zealand.
And like hard dinghies, nobody's going to steal your weird little hard
Problem
dinghies.
with hard dinghies, though, they're so heavy.
Well,
for me,
today, it was like 60 pounds.
Yeah, but getting that thing on deck by yourself in the breeze, it's an easy way to blow your back out.
I had a hoisting system on that worked pretty well.
I hoist mine flat, but it's still in. I've done it. I've had to do it even with an inflatable in like 35 knots. It's a good way to get injured, and I try to avoid getting injured. Being solo is very important for me. But I would prefer a hard dinghy because you can go up on rocks. They never go flat.
And you can fix it anywhere.
Yep.
I love I'm on the thing. I would have a hard dinghy except for the dogs. They just don't have the stability to deal with dogs.
Oh yeah. Someone said, "Is it possible to buy a bare hull, the 30-foot range, and finish it yourself?" Yeah, it's possible, but cost-wise, it might cost you like double what it would cost you to buy a 30-foot boat or more.
Yeah, people figure building the hull is like between 20 and 30% the cost of building a boat. So,
what was that boat that you like so much that Paul Exner has one and Kirsten just won that race?
Oh, Cape George 36.
Those are cool.
That's a great boat.
Yeah, and Paul Exner bought his like a bare hull and built his out.
Yeah, you just need to know that the hull is not the primary expense.
Yeah. Someone said Highfield makes both Hypalon and PVC. So
get the Hypalon one.
Someone says, "Do you know what boat was adrift in the Pacific for 3 months? Any thoughts?" I'm going to talk about this for this long. This is how long I'm going to talk about this. That dude's a con artist. I would bet 100% that he gets found out. He's a con artist. I called it as soon as I saw that boat, the video of that boat. The boat's in perfect condition. He refused to answer questions about the condition of the boat. He didn't look like he lost any weight. The dog didn't look thin. And he's saying he's been out there for 3 months. And then someone messaged me and said they were his dock neighbor in La Paz a short time ago. And they're like, he looked the exact same. And then the fact that he gave the dog up as soon as he's rescued, like you and a dog survived the open sea with no food for 3 months. And then you just give the dog the first fisherman that pulls up. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's just a con man. What else? Someone said, "Are you familiar with the Sail Newport program? I'm a beginner, and I thought of starting there." Do you know anything about that?
Is it Newport Beach, California?
Well, Case Smith, will you tell us where the Sail Newport is? Robin asked if I prefer sails over motor yachts. The only way I would own a motor yacht is if I lived in the Pacific Northwest. I would have a vintage trawler. Because there's just so little wind up there and a lot of rain. So if I was in that zone, I would have like an old vintage trawler, but otherwise I have no interest in motor yachts. Someone said, how do glasses affect sailing? I only use them for reading, so I don't think they affect it.
But I need them to not read, and I almost never wear them. You can
Yeah.
get away just fine with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it affects
them. I know I have to have like, these are just like grocery store readers that I got in New Zealand. I have to have like 5 of these in my bag because I lose them and break them all the time. But this only happened to me after 42. Like when I was young, I had perfect vision.
Yeah, I wish I knew about the sail Newport precisely. My friend Katie taught at a sailing outfit in Newport Beach, and I think that might have been what it was called.
Someone says, do I have any recommendations for a wind vane self-steering system for a Cape Dory 25? I mean, I think the only wind vane I would own is a hydro vane, but they're very expensive. If you could buy a used one, then that's cool, but it gives you a redundancy on your rudder. It's all self-contained. They are bomb-proof. I sailed 6,000 miles, over 6,000 miles with one, never touched my helm, except in very calm, where I was like sculling, trying to get the boat to move. But I would imagine, I mean, a lot of the contemporary ones, there's like, I don't know the brands and I don't have experience with all the different brands, but most, even the servo pendulum ones, it's like they're cheaper and, you know.
I sailed the Monitor. I sailed a couple thousand miles to the Monitor.
Yeah. And you liked it?
It was great on the Yamaha,
mm-hmm.
and no wind vane would have worked in the J boat.
Yeah.
So
right, because your boat was too big.
It was too fast.
Yeah.
But it was good. But what you were saying that it could steer the boat with no rudder.
That's the jam. Call me gun shy, but someone said, do I think Tri-Tick can sink man-o-war? I don't even know what that means. Do I prefer tiller to wheel? I don't think any boat under 40 feet should have a wheel. I think they should all be tiller boats up till 40 feet. What's your thoughts?
I love tiller boats.
Yeah.
I like driving dinghies,
mm-hmm.
and it's one less thing to break.
Yep.
I can use a 2x4 if it breaks.
Yep. What else? Let's see, we still got 145 people saying what's up. You guys have any more questions for Noah? So what are your cruising plans for this summer?
I don't know. I'm going to fix a roof. And then in the fall, I'm going to go cruising for like
He's going to fix the roof on his house, not...
Yeah. September, when everybody leaves Maine, I'm going to go cruise. We're going to go around those islands where we were farther out, Vinyl
mm-hmm.
Haven.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to go up weird little creeks and get weird.
Yeah. We did circumnavigation of Islesboro the other day. We did 3 days sailing.
Yeah.
We sailed up to, what was that first place? We're on Penobscot
we went
Bay.
Past Castine to Brookville.
That was a cool spot.
It was awesome.
Really cool.
Because I haven't been here much, and it is like unlimited stuff to see.
I read this. Can Noah install an enclosed head on a Flicka 20? What's funny is that he just told me this. He just told me this story. He just told me the story before.
Yeah,
so
I can.
Address your buddy.
Yeah, I can install an enclosed head on your Flicka 20, Katie.
Yeah, that's his buddy, Katie, in Southern California.
But it's better that you kind of have the captain's chair all set up there.
That is so funny. Oh, and you said you're going to do a composting head.
I think so.
I would never install one of those, but Noah's going to go for it.
I think I'm going to go for it. I heard a lot of really bad things from people.
Which is Noah's cue to be like, I think I'll do that.
Yeah. But then I talked to one guy that sailed. He said he was on the Catalina 42 for 2 years with his wife and 2 adolescents. So like that is peak nastiness.
That's gnarly.
And he said it was the best.
Okay.
And my rationale for doing it is that I'm going to have to change those through holes out. And well, why not just not have them at all?
As long as you can get peat moss,
which I can,
because like Neil wanted me to install one on his Allied Sea Breeze in Sweden, and we couldn't find peat moss anywhere around where we were, which was like something important to know. Yeah. So we couldn't install it because there was no way to actually set it up.
I just installed one in the camper, and it seems super simple and smart. So I'll do it. I'll tell you what I think. It's either going to be awesome or terrible.
Elena, do you guys have a composting head on your boat? I saw you just posted about good ventilation. I think ventilation is important on every head. Boats just smell.
That has an actual fan that has to run through it correctly, I think.
Someone said, what age is too old to sail? Dead.
Never. My dad's buddy.
Dead is too old to sail.
This guy, Ned McIntosh, brother of Bud McIntosh, who's a famous boat builder. Both were tight with my dad, and I hung out with Ned a ton. He had an Atkins Tally-Ho Major, which he sailed until he was 101.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone wants to know what you think of the new island packets.
They are strong, and they're good for lots of people, but not me. I feel like for how much they cost, you could get a boat that would do pretty much the same thing for a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of issues with the chain plates being fiberglassed in the hull.
I would never get a boat with fiberglass in
There's
chain
a
plates.
20-year lifespan on that, and I went to the Mac Boatyard where they replaced that. It is not cheap. So I'd rather have chain plates that I can unbolt.
Yeah.
Chain plates are cheap.
Yeah.
So if you can bolt and unbolt them, it's like a morning's exercise.
Mm-hmm. That's why I like mine on the exterior. So I can look at them. Someone says, what anti-fouling do you prefer? I want to do copper coat. It depends on if I can get it in New Zealand. I'm going to haul out as soon as when I get back after this sail to Iceland. I'm going to haul out and redo my bottom. And if they have copper coat, that's what I'm going to go with.
And that's where I'm at now too. Yeah. So I think, so my boss ran it on his charter boat for the last 12 years without touching it.
Yeah. And that was how big was that boat?
72 feet.
Yeah. Giant boat. And they went all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
serious ocean.
72 feet of no bottom painting is a special reward.
Yeah. It lasts a long time. Somebody said, what about O'Day?
I got smoked by an O'Day 32 more than once on a couple of different boats. So I don't even know who designed the O'Day 32. It's like one of those boats that sails way better than I thought it would. I don't know how well built it is, but I was impressed.
T-Bone Brown asked if I'm coming to Australia. Yes, I will be sailing to Tasmania from Nelson is the plan currently in January, sometime in January, so in the summer. And that's going to be an exciting sail. Hopefully Noah's going to come out and spend some time sailing with me in Tasmania. I'm going to be there a couple months. I'm going to basically spend cyclone season in Tasmania. And then I'll go up to Sydney Harbor, visit that, and then up on inside the Great Barrier Reef and on to Darwin and Indonesia. That's my 2024 plan. What else? Oh, Elena said, yes, they made their own. Cool. Awesome. They made their own composting head.
Well, they made it from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I want to just buy one.
Yeah, the Airhead or whatever.
The one that I just installed, what was it? It's called something head.
You don't say.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was big and plastic and like really easy to put together.
Somebody said, what do you think about a 1983 Hunter 33?
Honestly, 1983 Hunter 33. I'm trying to remember.
I'm very weary of Hunters. Hunters
are
not known for being.
It depends on what you use it for.
Yeah.
I think that it's definitely a 34. I sailed a 34 that was also sailed well. Mm-hmm. You could bend the top sides by hand.
That's not a good sign.
Thank
you so much, JC. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, ever race on a J105?
Yes. It was a super simple, fun boat. That would be one of my choices for a short-handed race boat. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine and myself had been looking hard at putting together a situation with a 105 or 92 for East Coast offshore racing. It is on the short list. I think the standing headroom is terrible. I think it's weird that a 34.
Well,
foot
you only
boat-
have like a 4-foot space in your boat where you can stand up.
Yeah, but
I mean, I'm like a midget,
but
so I
this
can
is-
stand up on most boats.
it's literally like this high.
Yeah.
But as far as a race boat,
Mhm.
I think it's pretty good. I think if you're on the West Coast, I'd get an Olsen 30.
Oh yeah, you love Olsen.
I mean, it's a better boat than the 105,
Mhm.
except the 105 is heavy enough that I think I'd be willing to go across the Gulf Stream in it, and I will not cross the Gulf Stream in an Olsen 30.
Yeah. I'm trying to get him to sell his I want him to do some solo ocean sailing. I know he would love it.
Yeah.
I know he would love it, but he's a little timid at the idea.
No, I mean, it's just time.
Yeah,
Rhea is
and getting the boat
fixing-
set. But his boat, that Finn Flyer's
Oh, can totally do it.
boat. Really cool boat.
Yeah,
really like that boat.
There's two in the States. The other one is named Harrier. It's owned by this guy, Ken Roper, who's done 14 single-handed transpacks.
Wow.
And he doesn't count it as a transpack unless he sails back.
Wow.
And he circumnavigated the South Pacific 3 times on it. So
That's
it's
amazing.
definitely like more boat than
Yeah.
I can handle.
Right. Someone said opinion on a Lauren Coster 28.
I don't know it.
This person said my Hunter 33 has smoked a few J's. That's all I'm gonna say.
It definitely, the guy with the Hunter 40, I knew he won the Ensenada race, like outright on
That is
corrected
funny.
time.
That must have made a lot of people mad.
It made a lot of people mad. And that's what I'm saying. I think it must be the same genealogy. It's the ones
Right.
they look kind of like swans, but they have really broad transoms.
Someone said, is there a good blue water boat under 40 with a lot of room below deck?
No.
I would say no also.
Yeah. I think if you want cheap, it's going to be small and below.
Not just cheap, good blue water boat.
Yeah. I also think you don't
30 foot, like under 40, he said, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, under 40.
And it depends like what state of readiness you mean. But like no would be my answer.
What else? Cabo Rico 30.
I haven't been on a Cabo Rico 30. I was on a Cabo Rico 34, and it was really nice.
So this is what I was saying. This is why Noah's on this live stream.
Yeah.
Because literally everything you guys have mentioned, he has some
You know
point
that
of
Lauren
reference.
one I didn't know.
There's like one boat in the last hour and a half that he hasn't, that doesn't have some real world knowledge of.
The Cabo Rico
it's
34 was
insane.
memorable though. It was named
Crazy.
Sparkle Muffin,
That would definitely,
and the guy
Jog my memory.
single-handed it to Tahiti, I think, and sold it there. The boat was really cool, very well made.
what else? What how long have we been on here? Sarah, are you still there? Are you sleeping? Let me see. I don't even know how long we've been on here. 92 minutes. Has Noah sold a naughty cat?
Yes. It was beautiful down below. It was well built. It was relatively easy to park in small spaces, and it did not sail very well. By my standards.
Yeah.
But I judge things by the boat. It didn't sail very well. If I were like super honest about it. But it would be exactly the kind of boat that you might want in the Pacific Northwest.
Why is that?
Because it motors really well. And it has a really nice interior, and you could drive from the inside.
So it's a pilot house type boat?
The one I was on was, yeah. You know, there's a thing called a Fisher 30, which is kind of like the old school version of that. Like sometimes I could live with a boat that doesn't sail very well if I was just motoring around in the rain.
Yeah, I like pilot house boats. You always see those boats that you know came from the Pacific Northwest, and I dig them.
Yeah.
But again, it's like there's a trade-off.
Yeah. I don't remember the size of the Nauticat that I was on.
Someone, or they're baiting us. Albin Vega 27, which is, of course, is a great boat.
It's awesome.
Fantastic.
You got to read Berserk. Have you ever read Berserk?
Yes.
Yeah. It maybe not the best written book, but
Sure.
like, oh my God.
I want to kill everyone in that book. Yeah. But those are great boats.
Yeah.
Fantastic boats.
And like people have done way more than I would ever dream of doing on them.
Says this is a good question actually that Noah has an opinion on. What would your boat of choice be for the Bahamas under 40 foot? So we were just talking about this.
Allied Seabreeze 35.
There you go. And tell them why.
because I think it draws 3.5 feet with the board up,
Mhm.
maybe 4. It's a great boat. It's plenty of space. Sails great. If Katie's still there, it kind of looks like a Cal 36. Like, yeah, that Allied Seabreeze 35 is a boat that is someday people will recognize how great it is.
Yeah. Is Katie still on? Katie, do you still have your Flicka?
I know she does.
She does?
Yeah, she's part ownership with some folks from New Zealand, and they do what you're doing.
Mhm.
They run from New Zealand winter and sail it in
Awesome.
Southern California in summer.
That is fantastic. Oh, she just said hi. Beneteau since 50?
Those are actually pretty interesting boats, to be honest. I was on one. I haven't sailed one. I have motored one. I wouldn't want to do a long passage on it because you could get thrown a long way through the interior.
Oh, I hate that about that. Dufour was like that. You had to crawl across the floor to move around.
But for coastal cruising, if you could afford it and you wanted it, it is a totally reasonable boat. It's well designed for sure. But I don't like the idea of getting thrown around in the middle of the night offshore.
Yeah.
But
me
coastal,
either.
it'd be like totally fine. Like that means anywhere between San Francisco and,
This is a good question.
Zihuatanejo.
What is the most important variables for when you rate a boat as well built?
Oh boy, that's a big question. First off is going to be, well, I'm going to always start with design, right? Like, is it well designed? And then I'll worry about the building. Let's just assume it's well designed. Then I'm going to think, what are the materials?
Mhm.
And that's where we get into like, what are the resins?
Well, just like you were talking about earlier,
Right.
What type of resin? So what's that?
Yeah,
what are your problem
what kind
states going to be with those resins?
What kind of glass layups? What's the schedule of the layups of glass? Was it vacuum bagged? Was it resin infused? What's the history of the builder? Does it have a liner, which you can live with, and I have lived with on boats I've owned, or does it have tabbed in furniture, which is really way easier to fix and take apart and work on? So the short answer for like what I want like good resins. If I can get it, I want vacuum bag, resin infused building. It doesn't have to be, but you almost never get you can, but it's rare to get pockets and voids and stuff in it. I want tabbed in bulkheads, and I really want tabbing to happen with vinyl ester. Some boats are built in isophthalic resin and then tabbed in vinyl ester because it's got good adhesion. And then I'm going to get into systems. So in terms of surveying, it's really systems heavy, right? Surveyors are trained to look very carefully at your systems because insurance companies really care about, are you going to burn this thing down or sink it?
Right.
And you're going to burn it down or sink it based on systems, not on the structural part of the boat. Systems are pretty easy to fix.
Yeah.
If you're working 12 volt, you can figure that out. You can read a book, and anybody can read books and figure that out. And plumbing on boats is really simple.
Very simple.
So I will give a lot of space for bad system stuff because I can fix it. If I was surveying a boat, I would not be so lenient because I have to adhere to basically the requirements of ABYC so I don't get sued.
Yeah.
So in the best of all worlds, everything is well done. And the fact is, you don't find that on cheap boats. Yeah. Period. Unless it's been outfitted by somebody.
You have to figure out where the compromise lies.
Yeah.
So.
But
for me, I knew I was always going to be poor or poor adjacent, is what I always say. So I knew I wanted a non-cord boat with an encapsulated keel that was a blue water boat. I was looking at Tritons. I didn't think I could afford a 30-foot boat when I found Tritea for $2,400. And then I did a 4-year refit. And at this point, between what I've invested and what my sponsors have invested in gear, I have about $45,000 into my boat, and I could probably sell her for $30,000. So it's never like a 1-for-1 what you're investing. But for me, I knew I wanted a non-cord boat because I wanted it to be built like a tank, and I didn't want to have to worry about delamination. Those were like important to me. I didn't want to bolt on keel, but
I actually think this is a great way to go.
Yeah.
Like in terms of simplicity, there's not a lot to go. The 60s boats are insane how they're built.
Tanks.
Like if you get a 60s hull, it's probably 3 times what it needs to be. And not having a bolt on keel, I've had to deal with keel stuff.
Yeah, it's scary.
And
that's how boats capsize are very easy.
And it's a lot of work, and it's really not fun work.
Somebody said, is an old Tartan 41 too much for 1 to 2 crew offshore?
No, the old Tartan 41 that is it's a Sparkman Stevens design is a killer boat. If that's the one we're talking about, it's a 70s with like a little tiny deck house. It's a killer boat. For a couple, it's fine. It's got a pretty big rig, which is easily controllable with a roller furling jib. I met a really cool couple in their 70s who seemed to only wear tie-dye that were on a Tartan 41, and they were totally happy. They were coastal cruising, like in, the west coast of Mexico, Central America, not crossing oceans in it, but they seemed super safe and happy. And we're like, same age as my parents.
Yeah. So this person has a question I think you'll enjoy. So I'm super poor. I'm like super poor, but I have a sailboat. And how can I get it out of the lake into the ocean, or should I sell it and buy another boat once I'm on the coast? Well, it depends on what boat we're talking about.
Yeah, it depends on what boat.
Because there's a lot of lake boats that are trailer sailors that are not ocean boats.
And it depends. Like in here on this island, somebody would definitely build like a janky trailer and want to take it. Like it depends who your friends are.
Yeah. Someone asked if there's a concern about lithium batteries catching fire in a boat. No, they're like LiFePO 4 batteries do not explode. They're 100% safe. You can look up LiFePO 4 batteries safety, and there's tons of information online.
I've been having to read about this stuff for work, and the big problem with lithium is installation. It's not the batteries.
Sail Newport is a sailing school and regatta in Newport, Rhode Island.
Oh, then I don't know it.
Okay.
But I've spent a lot of time nearby there, and I would imagine it's good because it seems like the biggest concentration of insanely good sailors on the East Coast.
Okay, it says, here's the real deal. There's a 1966 Alberg 30 for less than $4,000. Decent shape, main things to look for. The main things the Alberg 30s have issues with that are known issues is the deck beam under the mast delaminates, and so the rig gets soft and can capsize. That's the main thing. I don't remember what year the second version or whatever. I have a 1965 hull number 55. At some point they started putting in aluminum beams, and I sailed on one, like an older one of the liner boats that they had replaced that. They had corrected that beam with an aluminum plate. So that's the first thing you want to look at on an A30 is you look at that deck beam and see if it's delaminated. Mine was already starting to delaminate. I sailed it for 4 years before I fixed the delamination. I didn't take it offshore, but I sailed it coastally for 4 years. I sailed it coastally for 4 years with rigging from the 70s. I remember the first time Noah came on, he was like, please, at least replace your backstay. Dude, and I sailed with that rig.
You had Nika press.
Yeah, I sailed with that rig for 4 years, in gnarly stuff.
Isolators.
Yeah.
From what they put on a telephone.
Exactly. Pole. So, the other known problem with A30s is the chain plate bolts are undersized. So you need to upsize them, or you need to just get rid of the internal chain plates and go external, which I did. One main thing to know is you start doing stuff like I built a custom mast setup, double spreader rig for my boat, all custom. The thing to really know is my cap shrouds, my forestay, and my backstay are all 1/4 inch 1x19 stainless steel wire, and the lowers were 3/8. So I made everything 1/4 inch, which is fine to do. And what that means is that your spares on board match all the wire. What you don't want to do is oversize it. So if I had oversized it, all you're doing is transferring those loads to other parts of the boat. So it's not good to oversize a rig if you're doing custom stuff. So I kept everything the same size that was designed for as far as the wire size. And but yeah, those are the only two things you need to look for in an A30. It's and you'll look in the build, you might see a little bit of rust, but there's this stuff called, what's that stuff that neutralizes the rust, that stops the rust? OSPO. And that's what I did. I just coated tons of OSPO on mine, and then I resealed everything, and then I did an integral water tank in my bilge on mine. So mine is $4,000 for an A30. Buy that boat right now. Someone said, have y'all talked about electric engines? I'm not sold on them and have to see grounded due to electrical failure. I'm not other issues of grounding. I think we have the same opinion on electric engines. They're just not there yet. The technology is not there yet.
But perfect for day sailors.
Perfect for day sailors.
You got a
If
day
I had
sailor
a
on the
coastal
dock.
cruiser or a day sailor where I was plugging into the dock every night, I would have an electric engine.
Yeah.
If I could set up a hybrid system where I could have an electric engine inline on my prop shaft with a pillow block, I would do that because I think that's a really neat redundancy. But I think the only way you can justify having an electric engine on your boat, and this is, I've sailed almost 9,000 miles from Los Angeles to New Zealand. So I've sailed all through the tropics. Now I'm in New Zealand where there's very little sunshine. It's nearly impossible to keep up that with those batteries topped up to use that. The only way it makes sense to have an electric engine is if you're already committed to sailing around the world or wherever engineless. If you can't plug into a dock every night, just realize that you're either going to be running a generator regularly, which defeats the whole purpose, if that's your purpose. Yeah. And my other big thing with electric engines is I can find someone's grandpa to fix my diesel engine anywhere in the world. Patagonia, like the Bering in Dutch Harbor. Anywhere you go, you're going to find someone's uncle or grandpa that can fix a diesel engine. You can find diesel parts. Like a very specific electronic controller for your fancy electric engine, not going to happen.
Yeah. And I think a large part of it is that we haven't come up with a way to store enough electricity. It's the same problem that we have on land, is that we can generate electricity during the day with a lot of solar in California, but we don't know how to do it at night because the storage capacity, the lithium iron batteries are good, but not good enough to house enough juice to
But those are the ones that are flat that blow up, right?
No, the iron.
Oh, iron.
Iron is the one.
Is the safe one?
That's the safe
one. And ion is the.
Yeah, but none of them can really hold enough. We're just not quite there. And there's so many annoying things that happen on boats already that unless you're like really committed to just sailing all the time, I think that was a really accurate way to put it. Is if you're sailing all the time.
If you're willing to just know that you're sailing around the world without an engine, then that's fine. Yeah. But I personally don't want to sit for, 32 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours right off of a harbor because I can't get in because I don't have an engine.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, and I've been in conditions that were really scary where the pedal down in a hard blow, I'm dragging anchor, I need to get up and out with a lee shore. I want to know that I can trust I have a diesel engine that I can trust.
Yeah. And I grew up working on boats and was trained to think that was a responsible way to operate. You can do it without for sure, but it's really nice to have a backdoor escape plan with a reliable diesel engine. And they really are reliable for the most part. Marine diesels are strange. They will continue running in a very bad state of life.
Yeah. I love diesels. And I had mine rebuilt for $3,200. Sometimes things happen and that's just part of life. And I love diesels. And again, if I had a coastal boat, I would definitely have like a little electric one if I could plug in every night.
If it was a day sailor.
Yeah.
Because even just the trip we did would not have worked.
Yeah, totally.
We'd still be sitting somewhere south of Islesboro.
Sacred Assault. I just posted a link for you to follow to a mini series I did that'll help you get an idea as to how to get into sailing. What else? People are posting stuff. I have no idea what it means. What else? Let's see here. Someone said, proud owner of a 68 A30, came with an 80-hour engine, $3,200.
Okay, yes. So there's the deal. There's the 1960s deal that we're talking about.
Exactly. Awesome. Someone said this person's been patient and asked this question a bunch. Do you have a preferred brand of electronics? What do you use your minimum setup for coastal and Caribbean cruising? What's your thoughts on that?
I do. I like Furuno radar. I go with what the Navy and the Coast Guard and all the fishermen use. So I like a really simple electronics, stuff that won't break. I like standalone radar that's not connected to anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like a very simplistic cheapo chart plotter. I have used all of them. I have been perfectly happy with the Garmin as far as the cheapo. I've used the B&G stuff, and I've used all of them. I don't like my Raymarine stuff very much because it beeps.
Yeah.
Like
if he read the manual, he could probably turn it off. But he just curses every time it beeps.
Yeah, but it works
and loses his mind.
Yeah, it works fine. But the Garmin was the same price and it never beeped, and I had multiple for years.
He has that wireless Furuno radar. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, and it was recommended to
pretty
me
affordable too.
by people who were friends with your friends' parents, who circumnavigated in the Cal 27 and then ran lots of boats, and they did Cape Horn in their aluminum expedition boat with that wireless radar.
Wow. And they're cheap. They're like $1,000.
It was 800 when I bought
$800.
Yeah. So there's caveat. It does not pick stuff up at distances.
But what kind of distance?
Like not far. Like
10 miles?
8
miles?
No, like 3.
3 miles.
So I've had to scroll between like quarter mile. I always, every 15 minutes or so in serious fog, I'll go up and down the scale of what I'm looking at. And that's how I was able to catch like majorly big buoys.
Wow.
That I was not getting on like 5 mile. That I should definitely have been getting.
Also, that app was so simple that you couldn't adjust.
You can't adjust the game.
I didn't like that.
So I've
for
had
the price, it's very cheap.
The Furuno 1715, which is probably really cheap now. It looks like a really bad 80s video game. If you can just get over that it's not color or anything, it works. It's remarkably reliable. They're really cheap. But just Furuno stuff is great. Yeah. And simple stuff is great.
I remember many years ago, I was talking to Noah about, I was like, oh, maybe my depth sounder stuff's Raymarine. I was like, maybe I'll get a Raymarine radar. And he said, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to walk down. I think we're in Ventura, Oxnard. He's like, walk down, look at all the working fishing boats and see how many of those working professional fishermen have Raymarine radars. Yeah. And that was like literally all he had to tell me. I'm like, that is like so valid.
Yeah. And I've used a lot of Raymarine radars, and they've been fine. But I just try to go with what people count on when it's like their living that's at stake, like their financial living, where it really matters. But you don't need very fancy stuff. I just did a delivery with all of the very fanciest B&G stuff, and like I am a Luddite, but
he is a Luddite.
But like not everybody on that delivery was, and it was complicated. It took some messing with to figure out.
Somebody was asking about Noah's boat because some people just tuned in. Finn Flyer 31. I'm reposting that. This is like a little video link that's never going to be like publicly available. I kind of just put it up for his dad. We went for a little sail the other day. So if you guys want to see his boat, it's just a real simple video of us sailing. There is going to be a full episode that I filmed of the 3 days we went sailing that'll come out sometime, someday. Somebody asked if I ever want a bow thruster. No need for bow thrusters.
It's the beauty of small boats.
Yeah. Somebody asked a question about sailcloth. What sailcloth is the best value for fast, strong, long-lasting sails? He just got a new sail.
Okay, it really depends on what you're using it for. If I were doing what James is doing, I would get Dacron. And I would get the highest end Dacron I can get. So, you can answer that question is Katie, because she was like a representative of Challenge Cloth for a while. But like whatever manufacturer of Dacron you're getting, I would get the best cloth you can get, because that is going to represent the length of life, is which cloth you choose. I have burnt through North sails in 5 years where you can stick your fingers through it.
Wow.
And I have had, small sail makers use really high-end cloth that lasts. It was still going 12 years after I bought those sails with other people. Is the shape good? No. But there are laminate if you can afford it on small boats, I like, because I can afford it, laminate cloth, because Dacron stretches over time and you lose sail shape. But with the laminates, the sail will hold good sail shape its entire life. Now the life will be less. Like a sail will probably last 5 years. It's kind of the base minimum that you'd expect for a laminate sail. But that whole 5 years, you have the sail shape that you got when you bought the sail.
Mhm.
Whereas Dacron is kind of like a season, is what you expect. So Dacron's cool because it's very easy to fix.
Yeah.
So if I was going long range to who knows where, like you are,
Yeah.
Dacron hands down.
All the way.
For what I'm doing coastally, I got like carbon taffeta laminate.
You got very, very sexy mainsail. And someone just
fancy.
asked what you think about quantum sails. Isn't that who just made yourself?
Yeah, every loft depends on the loft.
Right.
I did it with Steve Thurston. He made the sails for this boat before.
Mm-hmm.
His grandfather was a sailmaker for Herreshoff. So like each brand is gonna matter.
That's what. Is. Show them your shirt. Everybody keeps saying crime doesn't pay, but I didn't know what they were talking about.
It says.
I kept being like, why are people keep talking about crime in the thing? What does the bottom say?
It says botany doesn't. Like I just.
I could not figure out what people were talking about crime. I was like, why do people keep talking about crime in this?
I'll wear whatever I'm given, basically. I was given this shirt, so didn't think very hard about what it meant. I got a lot of crap today about it.
That is hilarious. I'm just going to answer this out loud. Katie's asking about navionics and navigation and all that stuff. I have sailed almost 9,000 miles just using an iPad with navionics and a Garmin puck, which I just convinced Noah to order.
Because we dropped my navionics.
We dropped.
I've had my navionics drop a lot.
Yeah, so he was dropping. He has like an iPad with the GPS built in. That stuff, even it drops coastally in the middle of the ocean. Your iPhone, even your VHF, the GPS in your VHF, middle of the ocean. I've had it be days where there was no signal.
Yeah.
Days. Yeah. The Garmin puck, I've never, ever had it crap out on me ever. And I've been sailing with the same puck since 2017. I'm actually going to buy a backup while I'm in the States, so I have a spare. Katie was asking about downloading the charts. Yeah, the downloaded charts have nothing to do with like the GPS signal, right? So it's just like you want to offload you want to download as many charts you can for the region you're in. But that GPS signal is obviously very important to tell you where you are. Because when we were in Gilkey is when it really started messing up. We had no signal.
I've had it drop so many places.
Yeah.
And I've had it drop when it's really not awesome. I had it drop at like exiting the Cape Cod Canal at midnight in zero visibility.
Wow. That's scary.
I mean,
and you have a chart plotter on board at least.
I had a chart plotter and I had radar, but it's just irritating.
Yeah. But if you get a Garmin puck,
yeah,
they're amazing. They're like $100. I think if you get the little non-skid sleeve, which I encourage them to order as well, it's like $114 or something.
Whatever
like
you sent, I ordered. I'm tired.
Yeah, they're awesome. Really cool. Someone asking me about doing an episode explaining my tattoos. Yeah, I've been talking about doing this for like ever since Hawaii. People have been asking me to do an episode of my tattoos. I might film one with my tattooer in Los Angeles. I just got tattooed last time I was there. I'm going to be there for like a week and a half before I sail back to New Zealand. So we might sit down and do some filming, but my time is so tight everywhere that we'll see. Actually, this whole trip to the States, the only time I've gotten to slow down was here at Noah's house and just hanging out with him and Alex and the dogs and going sailing. Every day there wasn't rain, basically we were out on the boat.
Yeah,
and
boats plenty.
Let's see. Katie said she's going to text about the puck tomorrow. Yeah, I'll have him send you the info. He said he just ordered it. They're awesome. Says, how do you get your dog in and out of the companionway? I'm adding a torque lift retractable straps. Curious what others are doing.
All right. I have a lot of dog experience.
He has a lot of dog
on
experience.
A lot of boats, doing a lot of miles. Depends on the dog. I have big dogs. They're like shepherd mixes. I have a young one who spent all of his puppyhood on a boat, and he just leaps into my arms really easily, and I lower him. Tony, the older one, doesn't like that, so she kind of jumps down the companionway. I adjusted the furniture so there's a good landing for her, and then she sits and lets me know when she wants to be picked up, whereas the other one just climbs up. With old dogs, I try to lower them. And I like it if they put their paws on the top of the companionway, and I kind of push the back end up.
Yeah.
And then I keep them in. We didn't because we were super coastal, but I have like I wish I could remember the name of the brand. Oh, Rough Wear life jackets.
Oh yeah,
which are killer, and we still have Virgil's.
That's what I had for Steady too. Yeah.
Yeah, like the one that we use for Tony is Virgil's from 2005 or something. And it's like super soft for them, and I connect like a tether to their back and clip them in just like we did, and then it holds them on the boat. But
the handle is the greatest thing ever.
The handle is great.
Like when Colby took he had a giant obese lab. It fell out of the dinghy. She had one of those jackets on. She just swam over the boat. I grabbed the handle. I raised her up because she was too heavy for me to get her on deck, and he rode under her. Yeah. It was like the handle is very handy.
But James just witnessed like the training of a dog that had not ever been cruising.
She did fantastic.
So that's a side project on that video. It was like how to train a dog to cruise.
Yeah, totally.
The answer is like tons of treats.
Tons of treats.
And by the end of it, she's climbing in and out of the dinghy on her own. And just like once she felt validated, she was pretty stoked.
What else? Let's see. Canoe or kayak? You would know better than me. I have no idea.
What's that mean?
If you had to choose between a canoe or a kayak.
Well, I like the word kayak better.
That's enough reason for me. Oh, that is funny. I've never been in a canoe, but kayaks are pretty fun.
I've been in both. They're both fun.
Someone says, has your cruising lifestyle become a job? No, the YouTube channel is a full-time job. If I had money outside, if I had money, a way to pay for this life without the YouTube channel, and I didn't have to do the YouTube channel, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what you're asking. Does it feel like work? Sometimes, but I think that's just part of it. It can be very exhausting. Pushing 6,000 miles from Hawaii to New Zealand, I was pretty exhausted by the time I got there. That being said, maybe solo is a little harder on you than short-handed sailing, or maybe it's not. Depends on who you're sailing with. But yeah, I don't know.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like cruising, seamanship is a vocation.
Yeah.
So it's just a vocation that very few people get paid to do. So, and there's lots of vocations you can have that you are rewarded financially for, and there are some that you are not. So it's a vocation, and I think that's a fair way. Does it feel like a job?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's a vocation. It just doesn't necessarily generate.
Yeah. For me, I mean, obviously sailing is my profession because of the YouTube channel. But even if I didn't have the channel, I have my master's license with the U.S. Coast Guard, so I would be making money adjacent to boats in other ways if I didn't have the channel. But yeah, the channel's been my full-time job since June of 2021. Someone said, as a 14-year-old, you would do it if you want it and work for it. You have to start somewhere. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, it says, it's 14-year-old dreaming. Okay. As a 14-year-old dreaming of sailing around the world, what are the chances I actually can do it?
100%.
Right?
100%.
I agree.
It's like, you can do it. I've seen people pull off anything.
Absolutely.
And that's why I met you. That's why I just sort of figured you would pull it off. I have seen, in terms of boat world, I've seen, and I bet you've now seen some people who are like, people will pull off anything. But yeah, it's totally within reach.
Yeah. I think you have to be ready for some really hard work. You have to be ready for things to be hard, very hard. My life is very hard regularly. I just don't complain. And you have to be willing to be very uncomfortable. I mean,
by like contemporary standards.
yeah.
It's still better than like the Middle Ages. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get
for
the Black
sure.
Plague.
I mean, yeah. Well, no, we recently had a plague, so
yeah, but I mean,
maybe
that still wasn't as bad as the Black Plague.
that's true. Yeah,
Like,
I didn't see any wheelbarrows full of bodies. So, but yeah,
100%.
and that's what Lynn was saying when I was visiting with Lynn. She was like, "Well, what is comfort?" She was like, the idea of comfort. She was like, "There's different ideas of what comfort is." So, but I mean, like the general, like living on a small boat is uncomfortable. And if you're 14, you're thinking about sailing in the world, chances are, if you're watching this channel, chances are you don't have a gigantic wallet that's going to make you have a very nice boat that'll make things easy for you. So you could totally do it. And I'm sure you've already read Dove, but that would be good inspiration. And read Maiden Trip, Laura Decker. You can totally do it. Especially in this day and age, because you have access to kind of millions of people through YouTube. It's like, even if you don't have a channel with the internet, you can reach out to people. And there's a lot of old salts that if they see and believe in you, they're like, okay, you want to give this a go? There's a lot of old sailors that will get behind you.
They will give you
and
stuff,
facilitate
tell you what to do.
You doing it. If you are serious about doing it, you could totally do it. Someone said no scurvy. I agree. What's one place in the world you would not go again? American Samoa. I hate that place.
Keeping it real.
That's right. What else? What else? Do you just poop off the side on your boat when you come out of the ocean, or is it not illegal? Well, I handle dark matter in the toilet like a civilized person, and it pumps directly overboard. No, it's not illegal. What's the distance?
3 miles.
3 miles.
3 miles.
So 3 miles offshore, you can pump overboard.
Yeah.
Whales have been pooping in the ocean for a millennia.
Yeah.
And their poop's way bigger than mine.
It's worth avoiding throwing lots of paper over.
Yeah. You can throw anything legally. You can throw anything in the ocean that isn't plastic.
Yeah. Outside of 3 miles.
Yeah. Outside of 3
in the
miles.
United States.
Well,
there's the little
international laws. Yeah, you can throw glass, steel.
Yeah, and it goes like there's all those mileages because all the container ships dump like outrageous amounts of stuff as soon as they get like 25 miles out.
Yeah, but like on an ocean crossing, you just kind of paper products, all that stuff that can all go overboard because it all breaks down and goes to the bottom of the sea.
And I definitely know quite a few people that do just poop over the side of their boats.
Yeah, I mean, I have when I was seasick. I just clipped in, and because I couldn't go down below.
Right.
And just like hope for the best, and it was terrible. Someone just said, old sailor who would give his boat to Michael when I get dang old enough to enjoy her. If he can convince me, he'll take care of her properly. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, there are so many old salts who will, if you are serious about doing it, especially as a young person, man, woman, beast, if you're serious about doing it, and an old salt will help you. So many people will help you. I've helped a ton of people. Mm-hmm. You've helped a ton of people.
I mean, that's the culture. Everybody that spends time at sea is like, you pay forward.
Yes.
Somebody needs help, you help them.
Yes. So, for sure. Someone asked if I toss message in a bottles over. No, because if I throw bottles over, I make sure that there's no cap so that they sink and they become a home for a creature on the bottom.
Have you found any?
Mm-mm.
I found a couple.
Someone said, James, you're a darn good sailor, but you're a great cinematographer and awesome narrator. I enjoy kicking it listening to your content. Thank you. Thank you for that nice comment. We talked a lot about this the last couple of days about my videos. We're both from the art world. So Noah went to grad school at Cal Arts. Way back when we first met a long time ago, he was a sculptor. He built all the sculptures for this artist, Sam Durant, who's a very big artist. We both have a background in art, as does our friend Daniel, who we did the Brooklyn Boatyard tour. He was also a curator and worked in the art world in Los Angeles. And all of us left and ended up going into the sailing world. But I mean, you were talking about that as far as like the passage films, how different they are. It's hard for me to have like an objective view on anything I make because I make it. So, but yeah,
There's a different approach, like even just the time format, right?
yeah,
Like you're not trying to adhere to 15, 20 minutes.
yeah. It's much easier to tell a story over 60 minutes. But when I first made the first passage film, obviously that subject was like dramatic, so I knew that people would be interested in seeing it out. But even with the French Polynesia film, it would just reach over 1 million views, which made me very happy because there was no drama, there was no misery. You know, my life hadn't fallen apart. I wasn't drifting in the middle of the ocean. So that one I was nervous about releasing, and I'm happy to see it reach over 1 million in under a year.
They are like, I have not single-handed those distances, but I have been to sea on long distances, and it's pretty accurate depiction.
Yeah.
What it's like,
Mhm.
which is pretty hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Without embellishing it.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's fun. I enjoy making them. It says, have you ever had any sketchy night swims like the time I may have crossed the line? Like this time I may have crossed the line? No, I don't really swim at night. I mean, I go night snorkeling coastally, but I'm not trying to get launched by anything. And I'll swim with sharks. So I'll swim with any shark. Like I have no fear of sharks. But at night, you're just asking to get launched. I've done like night scuba diving and stuff, but you have a torch and you're usually with other people. But I've never had any sketchy night swimming stuff. I could see how it could be sketchy, that's for sure. Someone asked, how much fishing do I do on passage? I do very little fishing because I'm afraid I'll catch something and then I'll have to deal with it. I've talked about, one of my videos I talked about why I don't fish much because I'm solo is the main reason. I can't justify taking a large fish out of the ecosystem. I'm never short on food. The other thing to know is solo sailing, you get a fish on the line, you have to drop all sails, stop the boat from moving, get the fish in, the boat's being pitched all around violently, clean the fish. You know, I don't have a freezer, so I can't freeze the rest of the fish. So then you're going to waste half of this fish. I just can't justify it. So I do very little. If there was 2 people on board, if I was shorthanded sailing, I would be fishing constantly because then there was somebody could slow the boat down and get the boat moving while I dealt with the fish. And there would be 2 of us consuming this creature. Solo, I can't justify it. Someone said, I cannot heave to on my Catalina 27 for the life of me, no matter how many instruction videos. Are there some boats that are capable to heave to?
incapable.
Incapable.
The answer is yes, totally.
Yes, there's some that are incapable.
The Olsen 40 would not heave to.
Okay.
So there's, I haven't not tried to heave to a Catalina 27.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess that you could make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Some fin keel boats can be, particularly if they're light, and the 27 is light. Some boats you really can't get to heave to. It'll keep moving no matter what. So you have to have different storm tactics.
Is that because they're flat bottom?
It's because it's too light. It's because it's gonna. The Olsen would kind of skid around. It would catch wind and it would accelerate and slow down and do all kinds of weird stuff. I don't know if that's what's going on with that person. So you have to have a different tactic altogether.
So what would you suggest tactic wise? A sea anchor off the midships?
Yeah, geez, it really depends on the situation. Because like sometimes heaving to is nice, like chill and get some rest. If you need to chill and get some rest, I think I would go into drogue mode. The people I know that have done the most miles in fast fin keeled boats, shorthanded, go with drogues off the back. That said, it's a nightmare to get it back.
Yeah, totally.
But if you need to rest, I think that's going to be your only escape.
So that's not, I would not know the answer to that question. That's why I'm happy that Noah's here with us. What else? All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. It's kind of late. 9:30. It's Cruisers Midnight. We're both old men.
It's Cruisers 2 in the morning.
And thank y'all so much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope it was informative. Crime does not pay.
Crime does not pay.
So thanks again, everybody, and I'll see y'all later.